Dave, you want to grab these bags. These are Faraday bags made by Silent, and they make them in all different sizes. There's also a backpack, these little waterproof bags, and you put your electronics in here, and they cannot be, digitally read or people trying to, break into your devices remotely. And you can check all of these out at what's the website for these, D? slnt.com. And use the promo code TEAMHOUSE, and you will get 10% off of your purchase. So slnt.com and use the promo code TEAMHOUSE to get 10% off your order.
And you can also find them at SAP Gear. They're on SAP Gear as well.
And then the second sponsor for this show that I need to mention, I actually don't have any of their apparel here because I actually use it when I exercise. 10,000 Apparel. They make really awesome workout gear, really good workout shirts, shorts. They make like, I don't want to call them sweatpants, really, but stretchy pants that you can use for exercising. My favorite workout clothing company, and you can find them at 10,000.cc/team. That's 10,000.cc/team, and you use the so you just go to that website and you will get 15% off your order.
Yes, you can hit the link in the description, or you could use the promo code at checkout.
All right. Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 190 of the Team House. I'm Jack Murphy here with Dave. D is producing, and apologies to the live stream crew that we continue to have some issues with our internet service provider. We'll work on getting that straightened out. Our guest tonight is Jesse Boettcher, retired Command Sergeant Major, spent time in 3rd ID, 101st, 5th Special Forces Group, went on to serve in an Army Special Mission Unit as a assaulter, sniper, team leader, and Troop Sergeant Major. Before he went on to do a congressional fellowship, served as the ISAF Command Sergeant Major in Afghanistan, and then he served as the Command Sergeant Major of 1st Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group. So, Jesse, thank you. Thank you for your patience, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to clarify, I wasn't the ISAF CSM. I was the ISAF-SOF CSM.
Yes,
so
thank you.
1-star level, not 3-star level or
Thank
4-star level.
So, Jesse, I'm going to just kick it right off and ask you if you could tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that took you towards your military service.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my upbringing did somehow lead to my military service, but it was probably not a conventional upbringing, at least during that time. My parents divorced at a very young age. I was about 2. And it was... they live close by, so I would visit my dad on the weekends and during the summers and stuff. So I got that influence from him, which was quite an influence. And then the rest of the time I was living with my mother, that was a completely different, lifestyle. She was raising 4 kids as a single mother, so she was working all the time, day and night. I didn't see her all that often. And then when I was with my dad, even as a young kid, we were either out in the woods, hunting or fishing or trapping, or in the bar where he was drinking and I was, in the back playing pool or whatever. When I was about 10, my mom moved us down to Texas, and didn't really fit in too well down there with my Wisconsin accent. Got bullied a little bit. But that's where I learned to, after about a year of taking that, I started fighting back a little bit. And then when I moved back to Wisconsin, when I was probably 12 or 13, then I, not proud of that, but I was probably kind of a bully there myself. Not like steal your lunch money kind of bully, but just like, asserting dominance. Got to knock a couple of kids' teeth out once in a while to do that. But I think those high school years, probably ages 14 to 16, somewhere in there, were the most formidable, at least for me. I don't know if they are for every young man, but living with my dad, it was, he's a unique individual, just, tough as leather. I mean, if you can imagine like a Grizzly Adams kind of guy, except always, drunk and, kind of pissed off all the time. So that's what, that was my lifestyle, and I guess that kind of, I saw the good things in him though, and I tried to take away the good things, always keep your word, work hard, but then I learned some of the, not nefarious stuff, but it's like, hey, it's okay to do things wrong if it's for a greater good. It's okay to go poach a deer if you need to feed your family, kind of thing. So that's just kind of, my upbringing, out in the woods, like I said, trapping and hunting at a very young age. Even, by myself, I would go hunting and trapping at 10 years old, that sort of thing. And then right after high school, I graduated from a really small town in northern Wisconsin. There was only 34 people in my graduating class, and I was, I think I was 34th in the class. I wasn't the best student. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I was always respectful to my teachers. I just didn't like school. I had other things to do. I had a lot of freedom, probably more than most teenagers, so I kind of took advantage of that. I'd be out, drinking beer and playing poker, all night. So I couldn't make it to school the next day, but and I ended up leaving the house when I was 16, just because of some differences with my, not so friendly stepmother. But I realized that the importance of having a high school diploma. So I managed to graduate, with not the highest GPA, but I did graduate. And right after high school, I moved out to Hawaii. Excuse me. Which again, I did not fit in Hawaii either. So did not like it out there. My older brother was in the Navy and he was stationed out there, so I stayed with him. And other than that brother, I didn't have any really military people in my family, so I didn't have that growing up or know much about it. And my brother was 10 years older, so he wasn't there to share a lot of that knowledge. And he went in the Navy, which is well, I wasn't going to go in the Navy, but I think because I hated Hawaii so much, well, I shouldn't say hate, I really disliked Hawaii. I didn't fit in. So I think that's one of the reasons that I joined the military. I'm like, hey, if I go to basic training, it's back in the mainland, Fort Benning, Georgia. So I'll get off this little tiny island, it was so small. I mean, it's smaller than the county I grew up in, and I used to, I would travel a lot at 16 years old. I was going to rodeos every weekend, all over Wisconsin and then, adjacent states and stuff like that. So I was just used to traveling and doing stuff by myself and having a lot of freedom. And then put me on that tiny island in the Pacific. I didn't enjoy that. So that's when I just joined the Army Reserves, though. I didn't want to go full time. I didn't want that commitment. I didn't have that sense of patriotism and duty and serving your country and all that. So I just wanted to go to basic training, get in shape and maybe have a little bit of a challenge just to see if I could do that. I didn't know how hard it was. It wasn't really hard, but I did not enjoy basic training because they took away all those freedoms, that I had just spoken about. So didn't like that at all. And then after that, I moved back to Wisconsin and was in a reserve unit across the border in Minnesota, and as an 11 Bravo infantryman. And I was in a scout platoon in the reserves. And that's when I kind of started to like the military a little bit more. We would go out on our, 1 weekend a month and the 2 weeks in the summer in, northern Minnesota, where it was pretty cold and rugged country. And I kind of liked that, So I was thinking that I was going to go active duty at some point. And then in August of 1990, I was up at a MTT Mobile Training Team sniper school in Fort Richardson, Alaska. And that's when Iraq invaded Kuwait back in 1990. So I'm like, that's it. That was a deciding factor for me that I'm going to go active duty and be a part of this, big war they were talking about. I want to be a part of history. So as soon as I got back from Alaska, I went to the recruiter and signed up active duty in late 1990 and, stayed in for another 26 years or so.
And so you went over to 101st Airborne and did some time over there. And then at a certain point, you decided to go to, at that point, they were calling it Special Forces Assessment and Selection.
Yeah. So when I first went to active duty, I went over to Germany with the 3rd Infantry Division, spent 2 years there, had a pretty easy time there, almost too easy, had a lot of free time. And but I didn't get in too much trouble. Never got any non-judicial punishment or Article 15s or anything. So I survived, being a private and specialist. I got to the 101st and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the real Army. Pretty shortly after getting there, I tried out for the Scout Platoon and really, really liked that. Spent probably 2.5 years or so in the Scout Platoon. But while I was in Germany, I got a briefing from the Special Forces guys over there, the 110 guys. And I'm like, maybe that's what I want to do. Maybe go be a Green Beret. And, but it just took a while to go get a slot for selection. I had, some JRTC rotations and went to Ranger School and Airborne School and stuff like that. Cause, it's hard to go to Airborne School from the 101st. They're not big fans of airborne people, but that's another story. Eventually I got the packet together to go to SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection, and went out there on January 3rd of 1995, and didn't really enjoy selection. It wasn't. The only part that I did enjoy was when I was out by myself, which was, maybe half the time. The other half was all this stupid team week and team events and carrying, ammo crates full of concrete for ungodly distances and pushing 3-wheeled Jeeps and all kinds of stupid stuff. Working as a team. And I don't know, at some point I realized I'm not the best team player, but when I'm out there by myself, just walking through the woods, going from point A to point B, following a map and compass. I never really had a problem with that. And I kind of enjoyed it, you move at your own pace, whether, you can go slow or fast. And if you go too slow though, they're going to pull you out. But I didn't really have a issue at selection during the individual events, and then went to 5th Group. So back to Fort Campbell there, Bravo Company 2nd Battalion. And didn't really, I haven't been making any friends with the Green Berets because I've kind of talked a little bit badly about them in some other podcasts, but I don't know. I just wasn't impressed. I thought that at the time that was like, the pinnacle and that's the place to be. And it wasn't, I was just really disappointed with the quality of guys, in the Special Forces A teams. And I know that times are different now than they were in the mid 90s, when we're at a, peacetime Army and it just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the FID missions. I didn't like the winning the hearts and mind and being all friendly with, whatever, savages over. And, we were the 5th Group. So we had the Middle East and some of those guys over there in, Northeast Africa and the Middle East. We just didn't hit it off real well. And I had some, I won't say bad experiences, just like some probably classic SF experiences, trying to be nice to these guys and convince them that, we're there to help and we know better than they do in training them and stuff. And I remember this one time we were out doing a field exercise training with all these, commandos, and we stopped for chow, and I pull out my MRE, number 12 or whatever, and I'm sitting next to like the company commander or whatever, and he pulls out his like little tin can of whatever, goat guts, something. And so I offered him my crackers, just to be friendly, good SF guy. And he declined, but then he offered me some of his goat guts, and I'm like, oh, no, thanks. And so it's almost dark, and I remember I'm eating my food, and I didn't even see it until it was too late out of the corner of my eye. But he reaches over with his, dirty African fingers and stuffs this food right into my mouth. And what are you gonna do? I mean, you're not gonna spit it out and offend the host nation, right? So that's just one of those experiences that I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do this shit the rest of my career. And then another event, I think it was on that same deployment. We're going up some really steep, kind of craggly mountains on some goat trail there, and the guy in front of me, one of the Africans, he reaches back, to like lend me a hand to help me up. And I mean, I'm a young, fit guy, I didn't need a hand, but I'm like, again, I'll try to be friendly. So I took his hand, and he like pulled me up, but then he didn't let go. Like, he kept holding my hand, and like we're like now starting to come out on the level ground, and he's still holding my hand. I'm like, no, I don't want to play this game. So anyway, wasn't the best SF guy, and so I only did maybe 2 years in the Special Forces, and then I'm like, man, I'm probably gonna punch out. I'm probably gonna get out of the Army, and I didn't even have a plan. I didn't know what I was gonna do at all, but I didn't want to. I just wasn't happy there, So I told the team sergeant, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get out. Then he's the one who told me to recommend that I try out for the Special Mission Unit. And so I have him to thank, both the team sergeant and the warrant on that team, who had been to selection previously, and neither of them made it, but they spoke very highly of it, and they said that they thought I would be a good fit there, even though they had never served and they didn't make it. They somehow saw something in me, I guess, that they recommended that. And so the very next month I went to a recruiting brief. That was in December of '97. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. This makes more sense. This is more up my alley. And then in March of '98, I went to that selection. And as soon as I got the selection, I'm like, yeah, this is where I belong. Looking around at the, the other students there and the cadre and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is where I need to be. So that selection was, for me, it was easier, I guess. I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot more. I wouldn't have mind going back through that again. If they said 5 years later, you have to go back through that selection again, I'm like, yeah, no problem. But if they would have told me I had to go back through SFAS again, I'm like, no way am I doing that team week shit again. But at the Special Mission Unit selection, there's no team anything. It's everything you do from day one is an individual event. And, nobody's yelling at you. You get no encouragement or discouragement. It's all on you, 100% on you. And I like that. I mean, I'm not going to say I flourished there, but I feel like I did well there. And, probably the hardest part of that selection process for me personally, and I know everybody has their own experiences, but for me, probably the most difficult part was at the very end, when you're done with all the physical stuff and you have to go to the commander's board. And I was in there for about 34 minutes, and it didn't go, real well. They weren't easy on me, but after that they said, congratulations, you're accepted. So yeah, that's my story up until then.
That's great.
Jesse, it sounds like, you mentioned going hunting and trapping even at the age of 10. So you had this very individualistic, like, childhood and grew up that way where you were just happy being out there on your own. And you also had a background that I think, hunting and trapping is not, they're not skills that a lot of American youths, Americans have anymore. Did you find that, like when you went to the 101st and you finally got into the Scouts, and then you went to SF, that you had this skill set that, you know, that people just didn't know how to use, and you wanted more of that sort of individual type of mission out there, hunting and trapping, like doing your thing.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I kind of, it would have been nice, I think, if I had more like survival training. I think, you know, as a kid, I mean, I went and, you know, I'd sleep out in the woods. I remember one time I was 14 and we went on a moose hunting trip up to Quebec, and it was me and my dad and two other guys. And I knew when I went out that morning that I wasn't coming back that night. I didn't tell anybody. And in hindsight, I probably should have, because they were probably worried about me. We're way, I mean, very remote, end of the road in northern Quebec. And but I just left, and I didn't have any blankets. You know, I had a can of sardines in my pocket, and like I put on a little warmer jacket and a book of matches, and that's all I had. And I'm like, but when I walked out of the camp that morning, I knew I wasn't coming back until the next day, just to kind of test myself, you know. So I haven't really been in any. I've been obviously through some different survival training and SEER school and stuff like that, but I haven't, you know, excelled at that. I haven't mastered that. And so I watched that show alone, and I'm like, man, I'd like to be on that show and just kind of test myself with those. I don't know if you watch that show, but they're out there by themselves, just with basically nothing. They have to find all their food, water, shelter, and survive as long as they can out there. So I guess if, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, the Scout Platoon gave me that kind of individual freedom. We could be out there in just small, you know, sometimes we were just in 2-man teams, and I like that more than being with a company size element or even a platoon size element out patrolling. And I'm like, you guys are making too much noise, and you know, you're going to give our position away. So I definitely like being out there with a very small team or even completely by myself.
So what year was it that you went to selection for the SMU?
1998. Sorry, it was, if I said that wrong, it was March. Yeah, it's about a month long or so. So March, April of 98.
Okay. So you were there then fairly quickly to 9/11. Like, well, no, you weren't. 98.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. What was it like when you got there? Did you like what you were doing?
I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. And there's not many things on this planet that I can say that about. Yeah, from I mean, immediately from when we started OTC, the Operator Training Course, which is a really extensive, I won't say grueling, but it's a challenging course. And I mean, it's 6 days a week, and I would go to work in the morning and it would be dark when I got there. And when I left it in the evening, it was dark. And I did that, you know, for months, 6-7 months. And man, I enjoyed every single day of the training program. That's another thing. If they're like, hey, you have to go back through OTC, you know, if they would have told me that like 5 years later, I'd have been like, yeah, no problem. I'll go back through. I'll go through selection again. I'll go through OTC again, because those I really enjoyed them. But yeah, when, you know, looking back, there wasn't a whole lot going on in the world or, you know, in special operations between during that time. So Somalia happened in October of 93. So my instructors, a lot of those guys were Somalia vets. And then I ended up going to the squadron that was participated in Gothic Serpent and stuff. So that's kind of, you know, how we dressed and they would talk about all the lessons learned from Somalia, and it was Somalia this, Somalia that. So it was good. I learned a lot from, you know, the firsthand accounts of the guys who were actually there on the ground, and they shared their knowledge and experience with me as best they could, you know. But then a couple, you know, 3-4 years later, we go into Afghanistan, and we're not using Somalia tactics or equipment necessarily, like, because in training we're wearing these big, thick, you know, chicken plates front and back, 6, 8, 10 magazines, big med kits, IV bags, all this stuff. But when you start humping up the mountains in Afghanistan, you're not going to be carrying all that kit. You strip down to thin, lightweight body armor, maybe 3 magazines. You're not carrying IV bags and stuff like that. So, the military tends to focus on or
fight the last war.
The last war, exactly. And that's what we're doing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it's always, it's going to be hard to predict your next war. So, but we made a lot of adjustments, and we were able to make them really quickly. In that unit, if we're like, hey, this isn't working, we want to try something different. We could do that. It's not like in the big army where it takes years to make even small changes. We could make them very quickly. So we were, flexible and adaptable that way.
So I want to, talk about the Balkans, but before that, I got to give a shout out to the sponsors for the show. Dave, if you want to grab these bags, these are Faraday bags made by Silent, and they make them in all different sizes. There's also a backpack, these little waterproof bags, and you put your electronics in here, and they cannot be, digitally read, or people trying to, break into your devices remotely. And you can check all of these out at what's the website for these, D? slnt.com, and use the promo code TEAMHOUSE, and you will get 10% off of your purchase. So slnt.com, and use the promo code TEAMHOUSE to get 10% off your order.
And you can also find them at SAP Gear. They're on SAP Gear as well.
And then the second sponsor for this show that I need to mention, I actually don't have any of their apparel here because I actually use it when I exercise. 10,000 Apparel. They make really awesome workout gear, really good workout shirts, shorts. They make I don't want to call them sweatpants, but stretchy pants that you can use for exercising. My favorite workout clothing company, and you can find them at 10,000.cc/team. That's 10,000.cc/team, and you use the so you just go to that website and you will get 15% off your order.
Yeah, so you can hit the link in the description, or you could use the promo code at checkout.
All right, so Jesse, your first deployment with the unit was 1999 to the Balkans. I was wondering if you could tell us what that was like for you.
It's maybe a little bit anticlimactic. We were doing the PIFWickery, as we call it. So PIFWick is a person indicted for war crimes, and so some of us were tasked with going over there and trying to capture these guys. Most of them were not in areas we could go, meaning like Bosnia and Herzegovina, but they were in like Serbia, so we didn't have access there. In fact, when I was there, we were bombing Serbia and throwing some tomahawks over there. But if they ever came across the border into Bosnia, and if we had intel on that, then we could roll them up. So that's what we were, doing over there. It wasn't. It might sound really sexy, and and if that's the only game in town, which it pretty much was at that time, then it was, I guess, kind of cool at the time, and maybe looking back it was, but you don't see a lot of books written on it because it just isn't really, worthy. I was joking with somebody mentioned, somebody should write a book on that. I'm like, yeah, it'd be about 4 or 5 pages long probably. So we did, not me personally, but there was a few guys that got rolled up. I did partake in some of the surveillance of one of those guys. So, we did some good stuff over there.
Is that sort of like the precursor of what was to come after 9/11 as far as hunting high-value targets?
I guess you could say it. There was, so the unit is, primarily for hostage rescue, but, they're pretty good at manhunting also, killer capture missions. So I'm not going to say that was the precursor, because, they were doing that in Somalia, and probably some other places, maybe in South America or whatever, hypothetically. So no, Bosnia wasn't the precursor, but it was good. It was a good kit shakeout for some future things. I would say a lot of the low vis stuff because, we weren't wearing kit. Although we did one time, we were kind of dressing up like some regular Army dudes. I think it was First Cav over there. So we got some uniforms with some First Cav patches on them and stuff, and, put on like PFC rank or whatever. So we could, and got some Humvees so we could go out and, play the part. But most of the time it was all civilian clothes. And so just configuring your low vis kit, we had bigger radios back then. So trying to figure out where your earpiece and mic and, carrying your guns and how to hide that under a Bosnian leather jacket, so there was some lessons learned, some good commo, lessons and some new kit came out of that. But like I said, nothing super sexy, worthy of some, books.
Well, maybe a chapter, but
yeah.
Then you went back in the year 2000, and I was wondering what you could tell us about the second deployment over there.
Yeah, that was a little bit, maybe, I don't know if it was more sensitive, but it was just a smaller team. There was just 4 of us, and we were just kind of doing some, I guess kind of area familiarization. There was a mission to go into Montenegro to rescue a guy there, and then that fell through. But we kept some guys over there to you just kind of keep up the not the facade, but I ended up traveling a lot, like extensively, to pretty much every country throughout the Balkans, and then over to Italy as well. In fact, at one time I remember, because they didn't have the euro then, so I had 7 different types of currency in my wallet at one time, and trying to keep track of all the different money and exchange rates and stuff like that. But it was a good time. And again, saw some things that, most people will in the U.S. military don't get to see. I mean, like who goes to Albania? I mean, I got to, go there quite a bit. I know other guys go throughout Bosnia and Kosovo quite a bit, but Slovenia, beautiful country, Croatia and stuff like that. So got to see quite a bit and do some stuff that not really sexy, but it was good. I'm not an intelligence gatherer, but I was, gaining area knowledge and information, kind of a precursor to the AFO, if you will, the Advanced Force Operations, which, a lot of people they have different names for it, whether it's OPE, operational preparation of the environment, or in layman's terms, it's just area familiarization. So yeah, I did some of that in 2000.
And did you find yourself taking, I mean, again, working in small teams or by yourself, did you find yourself enjoying working in the sort of like clandestine, low visibility manner?
I do. I won't say I'm very, I won't say that I'm very good at it. I'm definitely not an expert or a master at that. But some people are, and I was privileged to be able to work with some of those people who are really good at it. So even though I'm not the best at it, I enjoy it. So, my last probably 4 years in that special mission unit, I was doing more of the clandestine type stuff. And yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's not as, nearly as dynamic, you're not blowing indoors and shooting dudes as much, but it's, it's kind of that little bit sneaky, cloak and dagger and, some surveillance stuff. And I did enjoy it. And it's something that, there's always a lot of room for improvement. I think with like CQB, you can get extremely good at CQB, but I think at some point, you're just going to kind of peak, because CQB isn't really that hard. Everybody does CQB now. Everybody, every infantryman in the Army, every Marine. Obviously, some people are a lot better than others, but just the dynamics of it, the schematics, it's not really that hard. So you can only get, you're going to get as good as you can, and then I don't know if there's always going to be a next level, but with the low vis stuff, it's always different. Every environment and every surveillance detection route, every scenario is going to be a little bit different and a little bit unpredictable. And I kind of like that, I guess. The surprise, or CQB, it's like, okay, there's a door, you go right, I go left, right, and there's not always, you get some surprises, but it's after a while it's just gets to be pretty redundant.
And then where were you when 9/11 happened?
I was in Fayetteville, at my house in Fayetteville, North Carolina, just racked out on the couch. Some girl called me up in a panic and was like, turn on the TV. And so that was the first I heard about it. All I had to do that day was drive. I was going to be cadre for the next selection class. And so I just had to go up and work selection. And obviously I didn't go in that day or go to be cadre that day. I hung around Fort Bragg for another week or so because they weren't sure where we were going to go or what we were going to do. They're like, hey, you're going to deploy immediately to the Middle East, or you're going to, they brought in some U.S. marshals and gave us classes on the procedures to be an air marshal. They're like, okay, some of you guys are going to go be air marshals. So we weren't sure what was going to happen. Nobody did in those first few days, at least. And then they realized once things, settled down, they're like, okay, you guys we're still going to run selection. So, you couple guys are still going to go up and do that. So that's what I did, a few days after 9/11 is I was working cadre in the mountains running selection.
And I mean, that must have been kind of a difficult time for you. I think Pat McNamara said the same thing, that he was part of S&T when 9/11 happened, and it was kind of like a difficult time for a lot of you guys because you weren't going anywhere in the immediate future.
Right, but we all knew
that
we were going to be, heavily involved in this.
Right.
It was the biggest terrorist attack on American soil ever, and we were in, the premier counterterrorist unit, in the U.S., if not the world. So yeah, we knew that we were going to be busy, and we had it narrowed down pretty quickly. Where we were probably going to be going and who was responsible for this and stuff like that. So, it still took, about 5 weeks for guys to get in on the ground there in Afghanistan. While I was, actually I was back from selection by then. October 19th, we sent some guys in, both the unit and the Rangers and the Special Forces guys, I think all on the same night, October 19th of 2001, they sent guys in on the ground. But yeah, I wasn't there for that. I was back at Fort Bragg at that time.
And you guys made it over in April of 2002?
Yeah, it was right at the end of March, around maybe April 1st of 2002 when me and my squadron brothers went over there and spent like maybe 4 months. I think we were there till maybe like late July or something like that. And then we came back from there. And within a short time after that, we weren't prepping to go back on a rotation to Afghanistan. We started preparing for Iraq because, the writing was on the wall there that we were going to be going into Iraq.
So tell me about that, what that time was like, for you and your teammates. I mean, prepping and getting ready for that mission.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I was just, during COVID, there's all the, the military was forced to get the COVID vaccine and stuff, which I totally disagree with. But then I think back to when, I got vaccines, experimental vaccines for anthrax, botulism. I had to get my smallpox because I never had smallpox as a kid. I was just a little bit too old to get that. So, in like December of 02 or January of 01, I'm getting pumped full of anthrax, botulism, and smallpox vaccines. But the difference between that and COVID vaccine is, we had targets on our target deck that were, known or suspected to be producing things like anthrax. And if you go in there and you get exposed to that, you're probably, very high chance, probably, I don't know what, 90% chance that you're going to die from that. So if they're like, hey, you can take this vaccine and then there's only a 10% chance you die, yeah, I'm going to take that, as opposed to the COVID. And I know we're not supposed to probably be getting political or whatever, but I mean, the COVID vaccine, an experimental vaccine that's completely unnecessary, because even if you are exposed to it, which probably everybody has been by now, you got less than a 1% chance of dying. So I totally disagree with those forced vaccines for the military or for anybody, healthcare workers, anybody.
Well, Jesse, let me ask you then. There's a portion of the 82nd Immediate Response Force that was essentially deadlined and non-deployable because of COVID, especially when they got back from like Washington D.C. I mean, for an organization like the unit that is a rapidly deploying unit that has to be ready to deploy to meet America's national security threats anywhere in the world. I mean, what do you think if like 2/3 of the unit has COVID and is non-deployable?
I mean, I had COVID, and it's not for me. If you're a healthy guy and not a geriatric or morbidly obese or all these underlying health conditions, leukemia or whatever, I mean, you're going to get sick for a few days and then you're going to be fine. I just don't think it should deadline entire, the DRF or whatever on-call, force, whether it's 82nd or the unit or whoever. I don't know. I just didn't like the way, that whole thing was handled.
It became the ultimatum where guys would be forced out of the service if they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with that. I mean, COVID, like that whole lockdown, it really bothered me more than I probably have led on to people. The way I saw all of our freedoms being taken away. And I mean, that's like one of probably the single most important thing to me is freedom. I can say that because my wife and kids aren't in the room, but, and now I see just all these freedoms being taken away and people voluntarily like giving up their freedom. Like, oh yeah, my safety is more important. No, it's not, because it's really hard to get your freedom back if you just give it away like that. So yeah, I mean, I was not in the military obviously at the time, so it didn't affect me, but my wife she's a reservist. In fact, she's been on active duty orders for almost a year now, and she had to get the vaccine. A friend of ours who's devout, religious, Catholic, I think a colonel in the reserves, she's like, I'm not going to get this vaccine because it goes against, I wanted a religious exemption, and they wouldn't give it to her.
Yeah.
And I guess and I didn't know this, but I guess some of the vaccines they use, I don't know, stem cells or something with aborted fetuses. I don't know all the details, but she ended up traveling to another country on her own dime to get a vaccine that was, completely like synthetic, not made from, just so she could stay in the military.
Oh, wow.
And then now, I think now they rescinded that ridiculous mandate in the military. You no longer have to.
Yeah,
they're talking about it.
I thought they had.
I don't believe so. I think they've been talking about it. There's about I want to say like 800 people in the Army who ended up getting kicked out at the end of the day.
Yeah, are they going to be allowed to come back in or anything like that?
Yeah, they will, because they got general discharges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have to get too political about that. I forgot what the original.
This video is already demonetized. It's okay.
But we were talking about
the invasion of Iraq and preparing for that mission.
Or even Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was exciting. We had all of us in our squadron had done some time in Afghanistan, and that wasn't it wasn't super sexy. But now we're talking about we're going to be the ones invading this country, and and I'm not going to go into the politics of if we should have or not, or if they did have WMD or not. That's actually irrelevant to me and the other soldiers, because we're going to do, what we're told, unless it's completely, unethical or illegal. So if our commanders are like, hey, you guys get ready because you're going to be invading Iraq, then we're going to do that. Whether or not we believe there's WMDs, like I said, that's irrelevant. So probably around December of 02, we were training, prepping up for the invasion. And so all through the spring, and then probably early March of 03, we forward deployed over to Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And we're ready. We've got all of our kit and equipment and vehicles, and we're just waiting for the call. And we got the call, probably the morning of March 19th. And then so we immediately started making our way towards the berm. And as soon as it got dark, we crossed over with a little help from our good friends at 160th. And
could you tell us a little bit, like elaborate a little bit about that night and what it was like pushing across the berm?
Yeah, I mean, it was magical. I mean, it's like the stuff that, you watched as a kid in movies. And I mean, there's a no kidding big ass giant berm. So we brought a big like D9 bulldozer to punch a hole through there so we could drive our wheeled vehicles, because we couldn't make it over that giant berm with, I mean, it's probably, 25 feet tall or whatever. So use a bulldozer, punch it. I don't know where they got the bulldozer, but we brought some engineers with us up there. We had a crew of, probably 40 shooters, but then we had another 20 like support dudes, mechanics and engineers, and we had an armorer, and we had different support guys, EOD guys and stuff like that, of course, medics. So as we're starting to go over the berm, the 160th guys started taking out the guard towers with the DAPs and the little birds. And so you're watching though, like you're in a movie, the rockets, 275-inch rockets are hitting the guard towers, and burst of miniguns, and we just drove across. I don't think there was any of us actually that fired around during the initial crossing over. And then that very next night, though, the night of the 20th, when the rest of the Army was making their way across from, I guess, from Kuwait, they were coming from. So when they were just crossing their berm, we were already hitting our first target, big target. We hit some really big targets out there with just, like I said, maybe 40 shooters, but we had a ton of air support, fast movers and stuff. So we could take out, a lot of dudes with the aircraft before we went in on foot.
And you were kind of, I think you were telling me that your element made their way to Crit, but like all along the way, you're hitting military targets that had been designated.
Yeah, we were hitting targets. I won't say every night, but probably about every 2 or 3 nights, because we traveled, something like 1,100 miles. Yeah. I mean, Iraq is really big. I don't know if it's probably like, it's big like Texas, right? So if you're crossing way on the Western Desert and you're hitting different military targets along the way, so we would move at night and then hit targets at night, and then we would sleep in the daytime and rest, do our priorities of work, whatever, maintenance of weapons and vehicles and other equipment in our ROD site, rest over day site. And we just kept moving along, kept moving east towards, and we didn't have like a specific target, like, hey, we're going to Baghdad or we're going to Tikrit. We were just given the mission to move in an easterly direction across the target or across the desert, and hitting targets of opportunity and other predetermined military targets along the way. And that's what we did. And around the 27th, 28th of March, we started approaching Haditha Dam right there in the, whatever they call it, the Sunni Triangle. And that was very, very heavily defended, because even though Iraq is mostly desert, there's still a couple of water features. You got the Tigris and Euphrates, and then you got a couple lakes in there where they dammed it up. And there's actually some real muddy and swampy areas there in between. So you can't just, drive across like it's the surface of the moon. You can most of the times, but when you come to those choke points where there's, that river or whatever, or a lake, there's only going to be a few places where you can cross at. So they had those very heavily defended. Haditha Dam, there was, I don't even know how many, artillery pieces and anti-aircraft pieces they had there, but it was a lot. So what we would do is we would drive up pretty close. When I say pretty close, I mean like a half mile away, actually probably a mile away. And we would just start identifying and lasing targets. And then the fast movers would just start bomb, bomb, bomb. And we did that for 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then finally we're like, hey, we're not gonna cross here anyway. We're not gonna cross dam. So we backed off from the Haditha Dam. Meanwhile, I think the Rangers came in there, I think 3rd Battalion guys. And we went up farther north to near a town called Rawa, and we crossed the Euphrates there. And again, you drive 50 miles before you hit a bridge. So that bridge is pretty heavily defended. And again, it's like right out of a movie. I mean, we're taking out all the bunkers along on both sides of the rivers and going across in our light skinned vehicles. There's guys on ATVs going across this bridge. And I'm like, man, that's, and I'm watching it. I'm right in the middle of this. I'm like, this is cool as shit.
and you made your way to, if you want to tell us about Objective Grizzly, which you said was like a huge target.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact day we hit that. That was up near one of those lakes, Lake Tharthar or whatever. Anyway, it was a giant. So again, we're a small element. There's about 40 shooters. And we're like, hey, here's another military target. But it's a massive military target. It's like, if you know what our NTC is, the National Training Center, it's like a giant maneuver area, thousands of acres where they do like tank maneuvering and training and stuff like that. And there's like a cantonment area with barracks and, whatever, their little PX and, little mosque or whatever area where the few soldiers are. So there's not like, 10,000 soldiers there. There might only be a couple hundred, but it's just a massive area. And they have these giant bunkers for their ASP, their ammo supply points that are just filled with all of these tank rounds and artillery rounds and stuff like that for the training rotations that come through there, just like we do with our Army. So they're like, hey, you guys go hit that target. Like, it's massive. I mean, it took hours and hours to clear all that. And again, even though we're heavily armed and our vehicles do have some, M2 machine guns and Mark 19s, and we have a bunch of machine guns and javelins, we're not going to do that with just those weapons. So I'm not saying that we did this all by ourselves. We have a lot of airplanes above us with a lot of bombs and bullets, to help us away. So when any of these guys want to try shooting back, a lot of guys just ran away, the Iraqis. But once in a while, some guys would try to maneuver on us or shoot back and stuff. And, that's the last you heard from them.
It sounds sort of like the Operator Olympics, this sort of like thunder run you guys made through Iraq.
Yeah. It was, thunder run. That's a good one. Yeah. So we hit some really big targets like that. And then we crossed the Euphrates on March 31st of 03. And then 2 days later, April 2nd, I know several guys have talked about that, but we actually got attacked by a couple hundred dudes, and they had, 100 or so coming at us, and another 150 set up on an ambush position over in a wadi across the ridge, and, expecting us to kind of like run away once, we were being attacked, but we didn't run. We just stayed where we were and we fought for hours. And I mean, it was a really long, gunfight, and ended up, killing a lot of dudes. Unfortunately, we lost, one of our guys there. Otherwise, that would have been just a great day. But yeah, Andy Fernandez was killed, unfortunately, on that day. But yeah, I know a lot of guys have talked about that extensively. It's been written about in a few books. But I mean, it's a big deal then, and probably even now, to have, like I said, 40, 50 guys get attacked by a couple hundred. And but And for the first probably 3 hours, it was just us on the ground. It took about 3 hours probably to get some helicopters in there because, again, this isn't the insurgency like a year or 2 or 3 years later. We're still at war, right? This is international armed conflict it's our army against the Iraqi army. So we didn't, even though we had a lot of fast movers, we didn't necessarily own the airspace, and we didn't have FOB set up or anything like that. It's just us out there in the Western desert. So it took about 3 hours finally to get some DAPs in there. And then they're the ones that saw all of those dudes set up in the ambush position who'd been waiting for us for hours. And then we got the medevac in there to get Andy out and a couple other dudes that got wounded. And then we ended up bringing some A-10s in and a couple of F-16s. So, yeah, we pretty much laid waste to the bad guys that day.
And what was sort of how did you guys arrive at Tikrit, and how was that sort of determined to be like your limit of advance?
So we ended up meeting up with some conventional guys who had some Abrams, some M1 Abrams tanks. And so by this time, this is probably April 7th, maybe something like that around there. I don't know the exact date on that, but we coordinated with this tank platoon. I think it was 5 Abrams tanks. And so we're like, we're gonna have you guys go with us, and we're gonna drive into the edge of Tikrit. We had no intentions of occupying space there or, gaining a foothold. All we wanted to do is kind of harassment, but also sending a message that, hey, the Americans are here. We just came across a desert, and now we are in, Tikrit, the hometown of Saddam Hussein. So we went into the edge of town, and there's major highways there, just like there is, around our cities here in the U.S. And there was this big clover leaf, like we have here, and they had it all barricaded with spikes and all this wire and crap like that. But we got up there and put the tanks up on the clover leaf, and then we had our light skin vehicles as well, and we got up kind of on some high ground and got out some our machine guns and stuff. And just some guys would, some of the Iraqis would come out towards us with their little technical vehicles, Toyota Hiluxes and stuff, with the machine gun on the back or whatever, and they would just get basically vaporized by the 105 main guns of these Abrams tanks. So it was again, it was an exciting thing, and we felt really good. I remember the next day, so we just went in there, killed some dudes, shot up a bunch of stuff, and then before it got light, we pulled back out of there. So again, and that was the plan. There was never a plan to hold that ground or invade into the city limits necessarily of Tikrit. We just wanted to go up there and show a force. Hey, we can do this. We can come into your town, kill some of your soldiers, and then pull out. And there's nothing you can do about it. And we didn't lose anybody. I don't even think we had anybody get wounded that night.
You're saying that the Iraqis were bringing technicals to a tank fight?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they were trying to maneuver on us and stuff like that, because it's pretty obvious where we were. But it wasn't working out to their advantage. They just don't have the technology. And it's as simple as night vision goggles, and the few guys that did have them, like we would come up on guys and different military dudes that had night vision equipment, and they would be in the box, in the back of the truck or whatever. They didn't, or they would wear it around their neck, and they didn't have the mounts for a helmet. So even if you guys that did have the equipment, they weren't disciplined enough to use it appropriately. So we have a huge advantage, then, and I'm sure we still do now. But so we did that, and then the next day, I remember we went up on this big, I won't say mountain, but it's a big ridgeline hilltop, very not probably tactically sound, but on all of our vehicles we raised up American flags, and it's like I mean, it was a good morale boost, for like, hey, like here we are, here we are. We're just in these light skinned vehicles, come and get us if you want to. And I don't know, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, and how did I mean, just out of curiosity, I mean, you pushed all the way to Tikrit, like you said, pretty deep into Iraq. How did you guys end up getting redeployed from that location and getting out of there?
Okay, so we pulled out of Tikrit, went back to, by that time we had established a camp at Grizzly, at that target that we named Grizzly, which was their NTC area with all the tank training area. So we established a camp there, and then a few days later, we went back into Tikrit because now there was other conventional forces there. Some of the Marines and some of the Army guys. I don't remember. It may have been 4th ID or 3rd ID. I don't remember, but there was some U.S. Army conventional guys and then some Marines who had made it from the south up into Tikrit, but they had just kind of gained a foothold. So they hadn't really cleared. There was two Saddam's palaces there, one more opulent than the other. So we're like, hey, we're going to go and hit those, just our guys. So we went in there on the either the 12th or 13th. It would have been the 13th of April, and we hit the first palace and we occupied it. We stayed there that night. I remember I slept on a couch, and that was the first time I'd slept on anything other than the desert floor, in a full month. But I still didn't get a shower. And then the next morning, April 14th, we went and hit the other bigger palace, and then we occupied that as well. And then finally I got a shower after a month, and I slept on a bed there, so that was pretty nice. Yeah, I remember that. That was the day my daughter was born. I got a phone call. We had one satellite radio, and they're like, "Hey, Jess, you got to call." And they're like, "Hey, your daughter's born. It's a girl." Like, I didn't even know at that time, before if it was going to be a boy or a girl. So I'm like, all right, that's cool.
It's so surreal. and yeah, again, I'm just curious, like, how did you guys return home from there?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just trying to go through the timeline.
Yeah,
yeah. We're coming. This is 20 years. It'll be 20 years.
Yeah.
With David. So we hit that second palace, and then we only stayed there a day or two. So 16th, 17th of April, and then they're like, "Hey, this other squadron is here. You guys probably need a break because we've been running and gunning nonstop, for a month, and which probably doesn't sound like much because the next year we were doing that literally. We did that for years, but this was the first time that we were doing it that frequently, and we had traveled, like I said, all the way across the desert. So another squadron came in, and we kind of swapped that with them, and then we went back all the way back to one of those airfields out there in the west. I don't remember if it was H1 or H3, but one of those airfields. And they're like, "All right, you guys can head home." They brought in a I guess it was probably a C-17 out there on the desert airstrip, and loaded up and flew home. So like it was and that was around the probably 22nd of April. So we were in Iraq for just over a month, and then I didn't go back again until September. Yeah, September of 2003. So I had a couple months off before I started getting back into it.
So, I mean, as we fast forward a little bit, what was going on with you? You ended up becoming a sniper, and you ended up starting that rotation back to Iraq, going back and forth to Iraq. And what are you seeing as you go on these deployments, and what are you seeing in Iraq as the insurgency sort of starts to kick up?
Yeah, I mean, it picked up pretty quick. So when we went back in September, there wasn't like an insurgency
yet.
Didn't exist yet. There was like, I remember seeing the first reports of these roadside bombs, these IEDs that we'd get a picture sent to us, and it was like, wow, look at this. They took an artillery piece and they did this, and they were so few and far between. There would be like, maybe one or two per week in all of Iraq, and we would get the intel updates on these, IEDs. So we didn't even realize that was, like the beginning of the insurgency. At that time, we're going after the deck of cards, guys, right? Yep. Those, well, it was actually 54, not 52, but Uday and Qusay had just been killed in July up there in Mosul in 2003, with some help from some of my coworkers. And then, we're just going, we're manhunting at that point. We're just starting to go after high value targets. And then when we couldn't find those, we'd go after whatever other shitbag, that was looking to maybe be connected to these roadside bombs and stuff like that were starting to pop up. So it kind of escalated. It escalated pretty quickly. I think, so I was there in Iraq from September all the way until September 2003 until January of 2004. And obviously during that time, Saddam was captured. I wasn't involved, but I was up in Mosul when it happened. And I'm like, okay, now it's over, right? Back in May, we declared that all major combat operations are over. There was a few roadside bombs, but now Saddam is captured. This should be the end of this nonsense. We're going to somehow reestablish a legitimate government, and this is going to be the end of the fighting in Iraq, and we can go back to Afghanistan, where we know that there's the real guys responsible for 9/11. But it didn't play out that way. Obviously, there's a lot of people that don't like Americans and don't like the West and don't like, who we are and what we stand for. And so that was just, they saw that as, a lawless place where they could just come from other countries. Initially It was just the Iraqis, some holdouts of the Ba'ath Party and some, fanatics, Sunnis or whatever. But now you're getting in all of these people from other countries all over the Middle East, not just Syria, but, they're coming from Iran, and they're coming from Syria, and they're coming from North Africa, and they're coming from all over the place just for the opportunity to maybe kill an American or kill some Westerners, whether they're on their jihad or they just want to, get frisky. So the insurgency really escalated pretty quickly, and it didn't die off quickly. It took a long time to kind of taper down.
How did you grew up basically with these, Somali vets saying this is the way we do war. And then you went to Afghanistan, which is a different way of doing war. And then you went to Iraq, which is, I imagine, a different way of doing war, but also you're learning as time goes, right? And you're changing the way you do war when you go to those places. How did you see the evolution of your tactics and strategies then?
So one thing, I left the unit 13 years ago, so I have to assume that they're not using the exact same, TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures now that they were then, but I just don't necessarily want to, potentially divulge some information. But
I understand.
Some of our tactics, did change because, so like I said, we are primarily, the reason that we were created and why we existed was for hostage rescue. So it's different when you're doing a hostage rescue mission than if you're just going out to kill or capture some shitbags and there's no good guys on target.
Right.
It's different there, and you don't necessarily, you don't even have to go in the building, right? You could just stand outside and, get on a microphone and be like, hey, bad guy, come outside with your hands up, or we're going to bomb your house, So where you can't do that with a hostage rescue, you have to go in really fast, flood the building and shoot the bad guys before they can shoot the hostages. So it's a different mission set. So it took us a little bit to kind of learn that because we're so focused on, being very discriminatory in our shooting. And there's a lot of times especially earlier on when, it's a bad guy and he's running away and you're like, well, he doesn't have a weapon. So, you can't shoot him. But then later on, some of the ROE, the rules of engagement change where it was allowed. And I'm not fessing up to any war crimes here. I'm just saying, because this goes through very extensive legal review.
Because what they're doing is they're running off target, running up to
they're not
a ledge that overlooks the target. And grabbing an RPG that's been stashed up there or whatever.
Right.
Also,
exactly. So, and I'm not saying that was the norm, but there are some very specific targets that, Intel says, hey, we know for a fact there are no women and children here. We know for a fact that everybody on this target is bad. So then you have authority on some specific targets.
Right.
And again, only a select few where it's like you can shoot squirters. So, there can be an unarmed guy running away and you are well within your legal right to engage that enemy combatant, even though he doesn't have a gun.
Right.
Because he just threw his gun down and now he's running away. Like, I gotta.
Right.
So we had to, change a little bit that way, just in, thinking on, hey, we can shoot more of these guys, because there's a lot of guys early on that should have been shot that weren't. I'm sure later, they got shot eventually because they deserved it. But as far as our tactics, I mean, some of the stuff, like I said, we didn't have to land on the X and go right into, blowing in the doors and windows and going in real hard. We realized we maybe don't have to do that. We can land off on the Y, or we can do an offset and land 3 miles away and walk in, or we can do a knock on the door and call them out, with the interpreter or whatever. So we learned that we could mix it up too. We don't want to be predictable. And again, I don't think I would be giving away any TTPs there, because some things are not going to change. CQBs, some things are going to be the same. Like I said earlier, CQB is pretty, it's not that hard, breach door, left, right, clear your sectors, shoot bad guys, don't shoot the good guys.
We've talked on the show a number of times about just how that evolved in Iraq and Afghanistan, how, like you said, all units were doing CQB at a certain point in time. And then everybody realized, why are we doing CQB when there's not a hostage? Why are we, flooding this room or this house with personnel when there's a simpler solution, even having a gunfight from the windows is better than being inside a room that's been built up and barricaded and bunkered.
Jesse,
we hit some of those too.
If you take me to 2005, 2006, when the insurgency is getting really hot at this point, and what you were doing at that point in time, going over to Iraq with some of the guys.
So I'm even drinking a Rip It here.
You are hardcore.
I have not. How did you have to ship those all home from Iraq?
No, they sell them at the dollar store.
I did not know that.
It tastes just like deployment.
Yeah.
Anyway,
tastes like deployment.
2005. Man, that was, at least for me personally, that was a busy.
Yeah.
That was my busiest year by far. Spent probably most of that year in Iraq, and we got skinned up pretty good. We had on one rotation, and we're only doing like about 100 days at a time, 3 to 4 months at a time. So it's not a full year, and one of the reasons for that is so you don't get burned out. Because when we go over, we're hitting literally. I know guys say that maybe figuratively or whatever. We're hitting targets every night. We were literally hitting targets every single night, and often more than one a night. So you can do that for 100 days. It would be really hard to do that for a full year. But in that April to July of 2005 rotation, we got skinned up pretty good. And so I was a sniper team leader, and I did a lot of time in Iraq, up in Mosul and In fact, this rotation, I think I started out in Mosul in like April, but then quickly after that moved out to Anbar province. I think stopped in Ramadi for a bit, but then went way out west, right near the Syrian border. And we were based at a little fob out there near the, well, kind of by Al Qaim area. And that rotation, I would say probably over 60% of our squadron got Purple Hearts on that rotation. So just to give you an idea of how skinned up we got. On June 1st of 05, there was a pretty good firefight where one whole assault team got wounded. One guy got killed, guy named Steve Langmack, and then everybody else on the team got wounded. Team leader got hit real bad. A guy went through selection and OTC with. He probably got, I think he had like 70 something wounds from between bullets and shrapnel. And then a couple weeks later, on June 17th, so I've actually I've read about this quite a bit in several different books. I mean, probably 6 different books. There's been reference to Bob Horgan and Michael McNulty getting killed, and how tragic that was. And it was just a huge blow to the morale and to the unit. And but almost every instance I've read about or heard other third party is not completely accurate. So I was actually right there that night, and I've never talked about this publicly, but I mean, it's almost 18 years ago. So it was on June 16th, on that night, I think it was a Thursday night, we did an offset landing. We landed a long ways away, farther than normal. It's probably 5 miles away from the target. And that's because we went in on a Chinook, which, as you know, are really loud. So we didn't want anybody to hear us. And we went in with more guys than normally. Normally it was just either my team or maybe one other team. So not a lot of guys, but in this case, we had 5 teams going in because it was a pretty big target. And we had watched it for a while in this little village, and we knew that there was a lot of shitbags there. There was a pretty big building, and they had a mortar tube set up in the yard, and we just knew that we were watching these bad guys go in and out quite frequently. So that was the main target, and so that's where 3 of the teams were gonna be going. And right across the street, though, at one point, the ISR, the drones, saw some of the bad guys taking what appeared to be a hostage. He had a black ski mask on, and they were taking him across the road to this other smaller house. So that's really the only connection we had to that smaller house. So they're like, "Hey, Jess, you and the other team can have this secondary target." So I'm like, "Oh, all right, we'll take the trash target, But one thing I'll say, coming into this town, so after we walked in there for a few hours, about 5 miles in the dead of night, it was just kind of an eerie feeling when you got into town, because it was, we've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. This isn't like, any of us are new or inexperienced. We're all pretty experienced by this time. We've been doing this for a few years. But there was just something real eerie about this little village. I think walking down the street, it was just, maybe it's because it was so quiet. It was too quiet. There wasn't even any dogs barking. And there was I remember seeing this fighting position, just a few bricks set up on the street. It's a dirt street, like their main street. There's no concrete or anything, but they had this fighting position set up there. And I'm like, that's not normal,
Right.
To see on the main street, even though it is Iraq. So we go up to this, to our target, where there's 2 teams. In the main building across the street, 3 teams go up there. So we snuck into town. Nobody knows we're there. We have the surprise element, right? So we're going to do a deliberate assault with a countdown. So we're putting the explosives on all the breach points, and we're going to do a simultaneous where we're going to blow all the doors on both targets at the same time. And on our target, most of the houses in Iraq have a big wall around them, like a 10-foot wall, and they'll generally have a big metal gate that opens up for vehicles, and then a smaller, like what we call a pedestrian gate, just a normal door size, just to walk through. So my team was going to take the big metal gate, put a big charge on there and blow that, and the other team was going to take the smaller pedestrian gate around the corner, because we had identified that in imagery. But when we got up there, that smaller pedestrian gate didn't exist. It was just somebody had laid like either an old door or a sheet of plywood or something up against the wall. So in imagery, it looked like it was a door, but in reality, it wasn't. So we're like, no problem. You guys can just come through our breach point. We're going to blow this main gate. And then it's a short distance, maybe 30 feet from that gate to the front door of the house. So did the countdown, blew all the charges at the same time, and it's a race. We got 10 guys, like two teams racing to this. After the gate blows, we're racing to the front door, and immediately in the two breachers, my breacher Mike McNulty, and then the other team's breacher Bob Horgan, they want to be there first because they've got the charges to get the door open on the main house. And so they're the first two there. And then it's a Navy SEAL that I had attached to my team for that rotation. And then it's me. So I'm number 4 in line going up there. And Mike and Bob hit that breach point at the same time. And again, we didn't do anything really a whole lot different than we've done hundreds of times. But the difference was the people who were inside. This was turned out to be a foreign fighter safe house. And not only that, but they were well disciplined, right? So they were conducting safe house operations. They're in a foreign country, and they're in a high threat area. So they're up on security. They had 2 guys awake in that front room, and they had left the door ajar. So if they heard anything, they could just shoot through the door or through that open doorway. And that's what they did. So from the time we blew that charge on the gate till the time Mike and Bob made to that front door was just under 7 seconds. And I know that from the video. And so this is 2:00 in the morning, right? On Friday, June 17th, 2005. And the 2 guys who were awake inside, they immediately sprayed at that door with AKs. So now you got 60 rounds of ammunition coming, and immediately Mike and Bob both got hit. Bob fell forward into the room, and then Mike, he got hit 3 times, and he said, "I'm hit." And so the SEAL, who is number 3 man, he grabs Mike and pulls him out. But now we've lost all our momentum. The breach is blocked. And I was number 4 man, and now I'm number 1 man. So I'm like, okay, I can't continue going in there by myself because I don't know if anybody else is behind me because Mike just got dragged out. So the first thing I did is there's a big fluorescent light right there highlighting the courtyard. There's a big picture window. So I'm like, man, we got the rest of the troop right here. Now the medic's there, the troop commander, everybody's right there. So I immediately pulled out my pistol and shot the fluorescent light just so they weren't all backlit. And I'm like, okay, I want to regain momentum and go kill these guys. So I'm like, okay, I got everybody, I'm going through the names and I can see everybody, or the one guy can't, I call on the radio. So I've got my guys counted for. So I talked to the other team leader who's next to me now. I said, do you have everybody? And he's like, I don't have Bob. I'm like, oh shit. So I peek in the door, and one thing I left out, maybe I should leave out because I felt kind of stupid at the time, but the way the entryway was this little kind of alcove. You went through one door and then another door. So there's a concrete, just a small little vestibule, maybe 6 by 6. So that's where I was standing. And I remember the wall right next to me exploded. And then I'm like, whoa, what was that? And then it happened again. And then a third time, I'm like, oh, that's machine gun fire. But I was embarrassed that it took my brain, I mean, 3 rounds from an AK, that you're talking less than 0.3 of a second, but it took my brain,
Yeah.
a quarter of a second to process that the wall was exploding next to my head because of machine gun fire. So I don't know how I didn't get shot, but I'm more surprised how the SEAL didn't get shot because he was actually in front of me. So I'm like, okay, Bob's in there, but I really wanted to regain the momentum and go in there throwing a very large thermobaric.
The thermobaric.
Yeah. Is that that's not classified or anything?
Nah, they're out there.
I've talked about it, so I hope it's not.
No, you can look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll say hypothetically, if I had a thermobaric grenade, that's what I wanted to use because they're freaking devastating.
Yeah.
Compared to a M67 fragmentation grenade. So I'm like, if we're going to regain momentum and go in here and kill these guys, I want to throw this thermobaric and get it deep in house, but I can't because
Bob's in there.
Bob's in there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm thinking, Bob's now he's in my way. He's blocking the breach. He's slowing us down. So I went in there and I dragged Bob out, got him out into the courtyard, and then I got the rest of my team and whoever's left from our team. And I'm like, "Are you guys ready?" I said, "I'm throwing a thermobaric." So I went in as deep into that first room as I could and threw it all the way into the kitchen, and it blew every window out of that house.
Yeah.
Every door that was open got shut. Every door that was shut got blown open. They're just they're pretty cool little piece of kit. But when I did that, or right before I did that, at some point, the 4 dude, because there was 4 guys inside the house, 2 awake, but the other 2 got woken up right after that. We didn't know it, but they ran out the back door. Luckily, we had a Ranger blocking position set up at that corner, and they shot and killed all 4 of those dudes. But so then we went in and cleared the house, and that house was, you talk about a safe house. Like they had RPGs lined up, PKMs, RPKs. It had an upstairs, and every room upstairs was barricaded with sandbags and fighting positions inside the house. So it was pretty hairy. But we get up on the roof, and at the time we didn't realize that the whole freaking village is bad. Like they're all bad, and we didn't realize that. So I'm not like blaming anybody or saying we got bad intel, but we knew the 2 houses we were going to were bad. We just didn't realize that every house on that street and probably everyone in the village was also bad guys. We didn't realize at the time that, hey, there's no women or children here, and every dude is age 18 to 40, and so we ended up getting in pretty, not extensive, but a few pretty good gunfights from the rooftop too. Because like the guy at the next house, you'd see him peek up out of the window. And one of the things that, I would sometimes do is when you get the looky-loos in the window, you just put a round through the top corner of the window, and then you don't see him anymore, right? That's what if they're a normal person, if they're just an innocent homeowner looking out the window. But if you're a bad guy, you're gonna come back up and look, and you're going to try maneuvering, and so when those guys came back up, and now they have guns, so it was a pretty extensive gunfight from the rooftop, to the next house, and then the house down, so we're shooting at houses pretty much all around us, except for right across the road where the other 3 teams are. They had a complete dry hole. There wasn't a single person in the primary target house, but ours was the main one. So Bob never regained consciousness. He had taken a round. He had a pretty big beard, and he took a round in the neck, right in his beard. And Mike, unfortunately, didn't make it either. That first round hit him in the left shoulder. He's a left-handed guy, and that spun him around. So then he caught one through the side, missed his place, and then he caught a third one in the femoral artery. So unfortunately, both Mike and Bob died that night. but yeah, I've never really talked about that. I might be leaving out a few details, but yeah, so killed everybody in the house, killed the neighbors, and another thing, when we watched the video later, because we have drones up there, when we breached our gate, like 3 houses down, immediately machine gun fire came from the house through their gate. So that was also another safe house, and they were up and ready. And they just had this technique. They're like, hey, if you heard an explosion, just start shooting at the door, because that's what they do. So after that, we did change up some of our tactics and techniques quite a bit to make sure that we weren't going to do that again. But like I said, it's not like we made a mistake or screwed up or did something wrong, because what we did that night, we had done hundreds and hundreds of times before.
Successfully.
But, we just, yeah.
So your ISR had seen those guys moving from the main house to your house, but they weren't like on station long enough to see that the main target was everybody left.
No, yeah, they only saw there was all that activity, mortar tube, all kinds of known bad guys going in and out of that main house. But there was only one time where they saw him dragging what appeared to be a hostage over to, our target. That was the only connection that they had. So they didn't expect much to be there, but turns out that's where, the bad guys were.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be something of like a I don't know, I hate to say it, but like a watershed moment or a inflection point for the unit losing McNulty and Horrigan.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to take away or diminish anything about those 2 guys. They were incredibly talented operators, and it was a huge loss, of course. But I didn't understand why it's been written about it in all these books, and people talk about it. I'm like it was tragic, yeah, but what makes that more tragic than any other operator's death? 2 months later, there was an incident where 3 operators were killed on the same day in the same really huge improvised explosive device, and that's not talked about with the compassion and empathy and sympathy the way Mike and Bob were. So I don't understand it completely. I mean, it was tragic, but I mean, Bob was there was his last deployment. He was retiring. He already had his paperwork in to retire. He's just like, let me go on this one last deployment, because he wasn't normally one of our squadron dudes. He was a senior dude from another squadron, but he just wanted to get in one more deployment. So that's why he came over to our squadron for that one. And they're like, hey, you're going to be the breacher, which is normally kind of a newer job for a younger, newer guy, not a really seasoned guy like Bob was. But that's why he's the breacher, because he's like, I'll do whatever job you need. I just want to go and one more deployment, get in fight, and, for God and country. And so, yeah, I mean, great American. And, Mike, I mean, he was a phenomenal operator. He hadn't been there all that long. In fact, he's one of the guys I put through selection in 01, right after 9/11, and I had to go through. He went through selection then. So he had, been in the unit a couple of years. He had just recently come over to, actually, no, he had been on my team, on the sniper team, for about a year, probably just over a year. So not a super new guy, but had a really good history, really good reputation, even before he got to the unit. He was in the 101st, he was in the 25th ID, and just his former co-workers there still speak very highly of him.
And when you came back home from this trip, as you had mentioned, your squadron and the unit had taken some pretty serious casualties, and you fell in. You took a team leader position on a team that had been, they were all WIA, I believe. Correct?
Yeah. So we got back from that deployment in July of 05, and we had, we weren't even there for our own, the funeral ceremonies, memorial services, and all that stuff for our teammates. So just one of the ways of the war. But yeah, then we took kind of an extended leave, and the squadron paid for us to go on a kind of decompression trip up to. We went up to Gettysburg and saw some other sites. Went to the White House and a few other places, and did some stuff. Just kind of as a, I don't know the word when you're just to like get us away from
readjust a little
Fort
bit.
Bragg a little bit, and then but right after that, so by like August, that team I mentioned earlier that on June 1st of 2005 the whole team got shot up. They now needed to reconstitute that team. So there was one guy, original member of that team, who just had a kind of a minor wound, so he was able to recover and come back to the team. But they're like, "Hey, Jess, you're going to go over and be the team leader on that assault team." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great," because I had already been a team leader on a sniper team for probably over 2.5 years. So I knew that my time was up. And so now they're going to give me a whole nother year as a team sergeant, which is, in my opinion, the best job in the entire U.S. Army. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. But now I got brand new. I had to get like a hodgepodge of guys, a couple guys from other teams, and I got 2 brand new guys just out of OTC. And then, another 2 months later or so, right back to Iraq, back out to, actually we went to Ramadi. So we were based pretty much out of Ramadi for that rotation.
I mean, I don't know how you remember it, Jesse. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I mean, was that time frame like just a blur of operations as you guys were just hitting it so hard?
I mean, it didn't seem like it at the time. It's not like we were, necessarily felt overwhelmed at the time. It was just, it became a routine, a pattern. Like, hey, we're going to deploy for 100 days, and then we're going to come home for 200 days. Or actually less than that. We'll come home for about 170 days, and then we'll go back over for 100 days. And we did that for literally years. And so, I mean, it was enough of a break, I guess. I don't know. It didn't seem really overwhelming to us at the time, but there were signs and symptoms that it was starting to take, an effect, I think an emotional effect on a lot of guys. And so you would see guys like good operators who'd be like, you know what, I think I'm done. I want to go work and, try to get one of the office jobs, maybe at our research and development office, or maybe in the training area or something like that. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you need a break for? You just had a 2 weeks leave, so I probably wasn't real good at picking up on some of that. Even my own guys, if they were suffering a little bit of fatigue or whatever, it was happening, but it wasn't that obvious at the time. I think it took a few years later to realize, man, that really took a toll, not only, mentally and emotionally, but it like physiologically. And I think a lot of guys have, I talked about another podcast, the operator syndrome, excuse me, which I believe is a real thing that often gets misdiagnosed as PTSD, because it has a lot of the similar symptoms. But I think TBI, especially with, the assaulters who are in very close proximity to hundreds, if not thousands of, concussive explosive blasts. So they might not be real big, all of them. And if you're outside, you get enough standoff, in the open air. But when you're putting a pretty big charge on a door, on a metal door inside a building, and you don't have enough area, you can only get 8 or 10 feet away. And you're like, oh, wow, that kind of rang my bell. And that hurts a little bit. You don't maybe think about it. You continue doing your CQB and clearing the house. But, when you do that over and over and over, hundreds of times, I think it's going to, shake your brain a little bit and cause some little ruptures of capillaries and stuff. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I think that over time and years that adds up, and you might not have the effects right away after that deployment or even the next year, but I think, several years later, and I think that might be one of the contributing factors to the high diagnosis of PTSD and even unfortunately, the higher levels of suicide rates we say that we're seeing. So I don't know, just my theory. I'm no medical expert.
We've talked to people who are like pretty medically savvy on that, and what you're saying lines up with them. And one of the challenges in this community is because you are exposed to so many breaches and so many, all the time, that a lot of times TBIs are either mixed diagnosis, post-traumatic stress, or the two blend together where they can't really tell where the symptoms of one merge with the symptoms of the other. And you're right, it's just this cumulative effect over time, even once you're far removed from that environment.
Yeah. I can speak to that. I think my kids can too. They're like, yeah, dad has some anger issues.
Yeah.
Like, I can be a little bit irritable, I think sometimes, but
yeah.
Were there any significant ops that kind of stand out in your mind from that time frame, 2005, 2006, after that, when you were a team leader?
I mean, the Mike and Bob one, obviously sticks out more than others. I mean, I've ran that through my head, tens of thousands of times. And again, the shrink would be like, oh, you have recurring thoughts of that. You must have PTSD. Well, I was just trying to, play it back. It's not like, I don't know. I don't think that's PTSD, but I mean, the ops they did tend to blend together. I couldn't even tell you, within the closest 100 of how many of those, direct action, high risk missions that I've done, all of them, involving explosive breaches, almost all of them. So, I mean, some were, I guess some were more memorable. Usually the ones where there's gunfire exchange, those ones are more memorable. And I think some guys tend to exaggerate. Well, I know that they do, because I mean, I was involved in a lot of missions, and I know how many of them involve gunfire, and it's not that high of a percentage. Some guys are like, yeah, we're getting in gunfights every night. Well, then I think you're doing something wrong if you're getting in a gunfight every night, because out of 100 targets that we hit, literally there might be definitely less than 10. I would say between 6 and 8, maybe somewhere in there. 6 and 8% might involve some gunfire, and that's because we're just I don't want to sound arrogant, but we're really good at CQB, and we use that speed, surprise, and violence of action. So that works. If you go in with surprise and really violently and quickly, you can overwhelm the enemy, so rapidly that they just don't have time to. In most cases, they don't have time to grab their gun and fight back. And most of them don't want to. They're like, they realize that all of a sudden, an explosion goes off on your door and a flashbang comes in, and now there's 4 dudes there with guns in your face. You really want to grab a gun and try to shoot, you're going to die. So I mean, guys realize that, and a lot of times they won't. They'll have guns on them. They'll have guns in the room, and they know to get away from the gun, because they know that we're disciplined, and we're not going to shoot a guy who's standing there with no gun with his hands up. That's not what we do. That's what they do. They don't give a shit. They'll shoot. They'll kill women and kids or whatever, innocent civilians. That's what makes them terrorists, and makes us the good guys. Because we don't do that. We're very selective and discriminatory. But the guys, sometimes they do. They want to, they might hear the helicopter coming 30 seconds out, and they'll have time to grab the gun. They'll take some pot shots and whatever. And they, that's going to be a bad day for them.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that the unit like sending you guys on a trip to like decompress. What was the command starting to realize that guys have a shelf life? Well, not necessarily a shelf life. That even though everybody's living their best life and living their dream life, they still need time to come down from this.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they did because on that particular, in 05, that's when, because that's unusual to just like grab the whole squad and be like, hey, we're going on this
Field trip.
team building,
Yeah.
like relaxation kind of thing on a tour of, personal guided tour of Gettysburg and a few other monuments in different places in DC and stuff. I mean, I'm like, I've been here I've been here for 7 years now. This hasn't happened before.
Right.
So that's unusual. So the squadron CSM at the time was a guy named Bill Thetford, who went on to be JSOC CSM and then the SOCOM CSM as well. So good guy, smart guy. And he had also a Somalia vet. So I remember him talking to us like after Mike and Bob got killed, and he was like, he had some empathy. He's like, hey, after Somalia, we had 6 guys get killed, and for us, we packed up and the Clinton pulled them back, so they left Somalia within probably a few days after that, and then that was it. They could go on with the recovery, and they were back at Bragg and back with the families. And Bill's like, you guys can't do that. Like we've been doing this for years, and we're going to continue doing this for years. And you just lost 2 guys, and we have to go back out. In fact, right after Mike and Bob got killed, we went and hit another target down that same night. We brought the medevac in and got those guys out. And we went and hit another target. And, I think it affected, I could see some guys, they were maybe, you could tell it was on their mind and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know, it kind of bothered me because I'm like, that's over. That's part of combat. That's been happening for, guys have been in combat and war for thousands of years, and you can't just shut down.
Right.
You can go mourn and think about it later when you're back at the FOB or back in the States or whatever, but not when you're still kitted up.
Right.
And you still got bad guys around you. We're going to hit another target. You gotta, stay in the fight.
And you can't take it the other way where it's like, all right, we're going to get some payback no matter what the circumstances on the other end are.
Yeah. I mean, but so the next target wasn't like the next building. It was, we had to, we actually loaded up in helos,
right,
and flew to,
right,
another couple miles away. So it wasn't like payback or retribution. We'd already killed like everybody
right
in and around that house.
But
we killed like everybody.
But that's what I mean though, is you have to watch for guys carrying that. It's like, I don't care who it is out there. I'm just going to like,
oh, okay. I got
mine.
what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but I never saw that. There was another incident, February 3rd, so just had the anniversary, February 3rd of 2006. We had a guy get killed in Ramadi, and it took about a week to figure out put together that whole target set of who the guys were and who was responsible and where they were located. And it was Lance Cornett got killed. Anyway, when we went back in a week later, I'm not going to say it was retaliation, but we probably went in a little bit harder than normal because we knew that these were the guys who were responsible for killing Lance a week earlier. So there wasn't a lot of like, we weren't really like being nice.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't care about the call out.
No, we didn't do a call out.
So when after you did your team leader time, you had this pretty unique opportunity to go to OST. Do you want to tell us about what that was and what that job was for you?
Yeah, that's a little bit sensitive. So OST doesn't even exist anymore. It used to be a thing. It was called the Operational Support Troop, and it was just kind of a little bit more like less overt, full kit, nods, M4s. It was a little bit more low vis type of operations, but it was still, they were all, operators. There was no, it wasn't support guys. just a little bit of a different mission set, maybe a little bit less dynamic and less sexy, you know. You know, if you did a rotation, you might only do, you know, 3 or 4 hits during the whole rotation, you know, 1 or 2 per month, as opposed to, you know, 45 per month if as an assaulter. So a little bit different line of work, but like I said, you know, I think I said before, I wasn't necessarily really good at the low vis stuff, and but I do enjoy it. You know, it gives me some pleasure to be able to sneak in a place and in a disguise or whatever, and not be recognized. So yeah, I probably don't want to go into a whole lot of specifics on the mission sets here, but it's a valuable, and I don't know what they're doing with it now. Like I said, I left there 13 years ago. I don't know where they're at with the program and stuff, but I liked it. I thought it had a lot of potential. Unfortunately, whenever you get a new commander, they want to kind of like take their 2 years and change this and change that and change that, regardless of if this thing has been working and it's made progress. So I don't know where it's at right now. But yeah, that was a good time. I spent my last 4 years in the unit doing more of the clandestine type, low vis type of stuff.
It's a pretty cool capability. And how then did this whole congressional fellowship thing come along for you? I mean, I don't think too many people are even aware that this program exists.
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of it until I got an email. So it was probably March of 2010, and I was just coming up near the end of my my troop sergeant major time, and I was also approaching 20 years of active duty. So my plan was to retire, and I mean that had been my plan for, you know, since I got to the unit. I had laid out my 10-year plan, 12-year plan. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do in this timeline. Then at 20 years, I should finish my troop sergeant major time, and I'm gonna retire. And I was like right on track, like, you know, to the letter almost. And and then we get this email from I think it was from Bill Dept, who at this time was the unit CSM. And it's like, hey, this congressional fellowship program, it's been around for a long time, at least, you know, since probably the 60s, maybe even the 50s, but it only been open to officers, senior captains, junior majors, where they get some training and they actually go and work on Capitol Hill, be a part of the member's office, either a congressman or a senator, as part of their staff. Anyway, in 2010, the Sergeant Major of the Army, Preston, he said, hey, I want to open this up to senior non-commissioned officers. I want to get 2 E9s in this program, because they had attempted it in 2009, kind of last minute. They actually did. They took an E9 and an E8, a female, and I think they were already up in DC, and they're like, hey, why don't you go? We're going to put you in these members' office. But they didn't give them any training. They didn't send them through the whole program. They just put them in there for a couple months as kind of a trial. And I guess it worked okay. So in 2010, they wanted to do it the full program. The problem is they didn't put the word out until like late March, early April of 2010. And the program started in early May. So you had very little time, where all of these officers, they were planning this for probably years as part of their career path. Right. And they had their applications in, you know, 6, 8, 10 months earlier. And so I get this email, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And I remember going home and I just kind of casually mentioned it to my wife, like, hey, they got this congressional fellowship. They're going to open it up to 1 or 2 E9s. And she's like, and I was mentioning it as like a topic over dinner or whatever. And she's like, oh my God, you have to do this. Let me see what's the prerequisites. And she read through and she's like, well, you meet all these, you know, you have this amount of time. You in the Army, you had to have a certain amount of like number of deployments. You had to have a bachelor's degree. You had to have a few other things. And she's like, you have all this, you meet all these requirements. She's like, you have to do this. I'm like, what, why would I do that? She's like, because nobody else does it. Plus you get a free like master's degree from George Washington University. That's worth a lot right there. So, I took her advice and I'm like, well, I guess I'll apply, So I did. I applied. I went, jumped through my ass scrambling to get all the letters of recommendation and all my transcripts and I had to get, my last like 5 NCOERs. That's a non-commissioned officer evaluation report for you non-Army people. I had to get my last 5 of those, but all of mine are stamped secret. So I have to get them all redacted and go through this. So it was an ordeal, but I got the whole packet together, submitted it. And I did that right around the end of April, mid to late April. And then I get a call from Bill Thetford, who was up in the office of the Sergeant Major of the Army in the Pentagon. And he's like, hey, yeah, you got selected for this program. And I thought he meant, I'm one of several who has to go up maybe for an interview or whatever else. I'm like, oh, so is it an interview? He's like, no, you're the guy. Like they're only selecting one and it's you. So you have to report on May 10th. And like I said, it's like April 28th or something like that. It's late April. I'm like, are you kidding me? So that immediately like changed my whole trajectory for my life plans and my retirement and everything. So I cleared the unit. I packed up everything and cleared the unit. A week later on Friday, May 7th, and on Monday, May 10th, I reported into my new, well, it's weird how the orders work. My orders say I'm assigned to some student detachment in South Carolina, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So my orders say student detachment at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, with duty at OCLL, Washington, D.C. So I've never been to Fort Jackson, but even though my orders say that. So I reported into the officer in the Pentagon, and they're like, okay, go buy some books and go over to George Washington University. You're a full-time student starting like tomorrow. So I did that as a full-time student for the next, the rest of the year from May until December. And then on January, I started working in Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison's office, on Capitol Hill. And I did that for a full year. I still had a few more classes to finish up. I didn't graduate until like May. But yeah, I was a full-time congressional staffer. I mean, I was still a U.S. Army soldier. I just never, I wore a suit and tie. And I was still getting paid by the Department of Defense, by the executive branch, but for all intents and purposes, I worked for the legislative branch. And it was a super, very unique experience. Obviously, I think they still have the program. I still think they put 1 or 2 E9s in that program every year, and then probably another, 15 or 20 commissioned officers. So yeah, it's a unique program, and I have, me personally, I have nothing bad to say about it, but I went to a pretty good office. If you talk to some other people, like maybe 10% of the fellows that were like, oh, it sucked. Well, that's just because the office they went to, they didn't get along with the staff, or they just had a bad experience in that member's office, because you don't necessarily get the pick. I think I got a little bit of a preference because we get a list of the senators and the congressmen and you can like pick your top 3. And so I did that, but I knew that we had some people go to like Barbara Box. I don't know if you remember Senator Barbara Boxer or like, I don't know if Feinstein had one, but some like super uber liberal people, again, not getting into politics, but if you're a career Army dude and you're like lean a little bit more right or more conservative, and you get put in this super liberal office with a bunch of, pink-haired, he-she's and neck beards and Che Guevara wearing shirt dudes. You might not have a good experience, right? But I had a good experience. Everybody in the office, I got along with everybody pretty well. They're all young, bunch of all the staffers are like, 22 to 26 years old, and here I am, like some 40-year-old, crusty E9.
What was your job as a crusty E9? Like is your job to advise them on like the needs of the military?
No. So what I my main job was to attend or host the meeting with all of the military affiliated people who wanted to come and visit with the senior senator from Texas. So any defense contracting company out of Texas, or any of the commanding general of Fort Hood, or any other military type people who want to visit with the senator, they'll schedule the meeting, and then when they go to show up, it's me. They're not meeting with the senator. Usually, it's very rare that they actually get the meeting with the senator. So when this general from wherever says, "Oh yeah, I met with Senator so and so," they probably didn't actually meet with the senator. Sometimes they do, but it's usually with the MLA, the military legislative assistant, or it could be a military fellow like me, some knuckle dragging E9, and they're like, "Yeah, I met with Senator Hutchison." Really? No, you met with Jesse. So I mean, in that year, I probably sat in hundreds, probably 300 of those meetings. At least one or two per day. It seemed like. So that's what I did mainly. I handled some constituent issues. Because she had a huge staff, right? I mean, there's 25 million people or whatever. So she had a big staff, and there's several people devoted to just constituent issues, because there'd be literally thousands of, mostly emails, but also phone calls and handwritten letters and stuff that come in with their complaints or issues throughout Texas. So they have a whole, team dedicated to answering those, and they do at least try to send some sort of response to everybody. It might just be a blanket response like, "Oh, the senator acknowledges your whatever." But if there were some specific ones that they didn't know about, or they weren't sure how to answer, primarily if it dealt with anything in special operations, then they'd be like, "Hey, Jess, can you take a look at this? Can you handle this? Can you call this guy?" or whatever. So I did a few of those. I wrote a few speeches for her. She gave she was the keynote speaker at the annual VFW convention they had in 2000. This would have been 2011. It was somewhere in Texas. So I wrote that speech for her. After bin Laden got killed, I wrote her floor speech for that. And I also set up a meeting. This is where I got some kudos from her, as I was able to set up a meeting with her and Admiral McRaven. And she was like a giddy, like a schoolgirl meeting him. So that worked out.
I have to ask though, because, admittedly, self-admittedly, you weren't a fan of high school, right? I mean, you'd rather be out drinking and playing poker, and
hunting.
And you didn't like team events in SF. You'd rather be out by yourself. So now, not only do they send you back to school, but they send you in a play well with others environment. Were you ready for that at that time because of your experience in the military? Did you how did you go from that kid to that adult, sergeant major?
Yeah, because I was acting, I was role playing, right? It's like when I was doing the clandestine stuff, I was pretending to be someone else, or doing, in a disguise or whatever, trying to blend in. And so I did that for a few years. So now I'm trying to blend in. I'm a college kid, right? Yeah, I'm 40 years old, but I'm a full-time student. So I'm going to just do my college stuff. And
you went to protest, dyed your hair.
Yeah, smoking dope and growing my hair long. No, I didn't go that far. So the good thing is, most of the classes I took were very specific it was at the Graduate School of Political Management, and most of the classes, the majority of us in the class, like were the other fellows. So it was all these other Army captains and majors. So I wasn't in there with a bunch of punk, purple haired, dope smokers. It was probably over half of my class, of all my classes, and I took, a lot. But over half the class was the other Army fellows.
Right.
So it wasn't that much of a shock for me. If I would go like if you send me right now to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, yeah, I'm not going to be able to play well with others there. That's not going to, or to Berkeley, right? I'm not going to be able to fake it there,
right?
And fit in. No matter, I'm not that good of an actor. But yeah, I had no real issues. I think I struggled a little bit with because I wasn't a good student in high school, and even my bachelor's degree, dude, it took me like 18 years to get my bachelor's degree, right? After just like taking a class here, taking a class there.
All the Maps and Dantes and Clap and Dantes.
Right.
Yeah.
I was that guy. So it wasn't until I went to the Sergeant Major's Academy and they're like, holy shit, man, you have all of these credits. If you just get all these transcripts and put them all together, and take I had to take maybe like 3 or 4 more classes at the Sergeant Major's Academy. And they're like, so I got my degree there, but it took, 18 years, 17 years. It took a long time. So I didn't have really good, study habits in this academic, lifestyle. I mean, I didn't have a good system for my note taking and my research ability. And, now they're like, hey, you have to write a 20-page paper on this topic. And so I probably struggled a little bit, compared to some of my other classmates who were like real, like academic, smart people. Most of them already had 1 or 2 master's degrees. But I adapted and caught up quickly, and I don't think I looked like too much of an idiot by the time. By the time it was done, they thought I was just another, snot-nosed captain.
So your military career does go on after this fellowship and getting your bachelor's degree. And I want to ask you, the next assignment was going to be the ISAF-SOF Command Sergeant Major. I mean, what was that job like? And correct me if I'm wrong. Like now, you're the sergeant major over like an international SOF element, essentially a task force, if you will.
Yeah, it was huge. So what happened in 2012 was they created SGIF Alpha or /NSOC Alpha, which I know there's a lot of acronyms there, and there's acronyms within acronyms, which always bother me. NSOC Alpha, the N in NSOC stands for NATO Special Operation. So NATO itself is an acronym. So I had an issue with that. In IJC too, the ISAF Joint Command, you can't put an acronym within an acronym.
Right.
Anyway.
It's like a babushkin, or what were those dolls? The Russian nesting dolls for acronyms.
Exactly. Anyway, it just bothered me. But 2012, they created NSOC Alpha /SGIF Alpha, which was a 2-star command. So basically, it was a division level command, and it had like a division size of troops. They probably had 14,000 troops in it. And what they did is they took all special operations forces that were in Afghanistan, all NATO and partner nation forces. So countries like, Australia and whoever who are in, New Zealand or whatever, they're our partners, but they're not NATO. So you can't just call it NATO. So 29 different nations of all of their SOF, and they put them under one headquarters, which was commanded by a 2-star guy named Tony Thomas at the time, who went on to be a 4-star and take SOCOM later. So he stood up SGIF Alpha 2012, and then I went over there like January of 2013, and they initially sent me to the SGIF Alpha J5 to be the sergeant major there, because that office, they did really good stuff in it, but I didn't know shit about J5, plans and stuff. And I'm like, I'm an operator, I'm a door kicker, and here I am doing this this admin stuff. So that was a little bit of a challenge for me, just because it was so different. But this office, there was like 12 dudes in there, and they were all like senior officers. There was 2 majors and 2 colonels, and then like 8 freaking lieutenant colonels, but no NCOs, right? So they're like, hey, Jess, you need to go over there. They need a little bit of, just simple stuff like, developing a training outline and stuff like that, and some PT or whatever they. Obviously I had some other tasks besides that, but had learned a lot there. Met a couple of good guys. In fact, one guy named Eddie, he's retiring next week as a 06. I'm going to fly out to his retirement ceremony. But we worked there for a while. And then a few months later, I got a call from the Brigadier General over at ISAF-SOF, who is an Australian who initially worked in the J5. So he knew me, and then he went over and took ISAF-SOF. Well, his senior enlisted advisor had to leave, go back to the States. It was a Navy SEAL. So he's like, hey, Jess, can you come over here and be my CSM? I'm like, hell yeah. So I went, made the big trip from Camp Integrity over to Kaya, the Kabul airfield there. And so for the next however many, 8 months or so, 7-8 months probably. I was the CSM at a 1-star level for ISAF-SOF, which had all of the task forces from these 29 different countries. So Sagittaf Alpha, and it might be different. Not now, we're not there, but I don't know how long it stayed in effect after I left in 2014. But, Sagittaf Alpha had 4 different components in it. And one of those components was ISAF-SOF. And that was all the international dudes, the Germans, the Poles, the Danes, everybody. There's, like I said, 29 countries.
You went from being an operator to somebody with a 30,000 foot view. Like, did you enjoy that? Did you strap hang? Did you get on some ops with these other, like, how did that, you were in an office. How did you adapt? Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed that a lot more than I enjoyed the J5 job. The J5 job was monotonous, and it was all of this admin stuff. But then I go over to be the CSM of ISAF-SOF, and now I'm like snap linked into a very competent and well-respected Australian Brigadier General, who, he's a general officer, right? So he's getting treated very well, and I'm with him everywhere he goes. So we're getting we're going to visit all of these task forces. There's 22 different task forces scattered throughout Afghanistan. So we'd go way up to Mez, we'd go out to Herat, we'd go down to Kandahar. We'd travel all over Afghanistan on these, these VIP flights, and we have all these meetings with the commanders of the task force, but also the local Afghan leaders. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. I drank a lot of freaking bad tea, but
but nobody tried to feed you goat guts though, right?
Yeah, no, but I had some meals that were not so good. I guess I liked it because it was different,
Right.
I get bored with doing the same monotonous thing over and over, and that's that's why I don't work on a factory, right? I like a little bit of the unknown and some being surprised a little bit by something different. So that was different.
Was it kind of cool being like the CSM of like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, like this international SOF element?
It's not like I was like holding PT formations for
I get it. I get
dudes,
it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just it was just a figurehead position.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't writing any NCOERs for the German KSK guys.
Right, right.
Wasn't like that.
And the excuse me, the you finished out your career as the command sergeant major of 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group, which is forward deployed or forward stationed, I guess you could say, in Germany. What was that like for you going back to SF after all those years?
Yeah, it was. So it was different, and I will say that it was better than it was when I left Special Forces, 25 years before then, or whatever. It was a long time. I don't know if it's 25 years. I left Special Forces in early 1998, and then I went back in 2014. So whatever that math is. A lot had changed, but some things were the same. Especially with the forward station battalion, because they're the coolest guys in town, right? And they might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, like, yeah, we're the badasses in Europe, right? And so it just, I don't know, I sometimes saw a little bit of that arrogance that was really kind of unwarranted, maybe unearned or whatever. But I did want to go there. That was my choice. I said I want to go to either 2nd Battalion or it was either 3rd Battalion 10th Group at Fort Carson or 1st Battalion 10th Group in Stuttgart, Germany. But I was leaning a little bit towards Stuttgart, and my wife definitely was, because her mother lives in Germany.
Oh, cool.
She's a fluent German speaker. And then I kind of was also, because that's my initial plan when I was a private, was to be in 110. When I was a private in Germany in the 3rd ID, and I got the briefing from the cool Green Berets, I'm like, that's what I want to do. And I had it all planned out. I was going to be an 18 Delta Special Forces medic. I was going to learn Russian, and I was going to be on the A team and 110 in Stuttgart, Germany, Panzer Kaserne. Because at that time, it was just 1991. They were just moved from Bad Tolz, Germany, to Panzer in Stuttgart. So that's what I wanted to do. And then I went and did this whole other career. And then finally, so many years later, I have an opportunity to go to 110, not just to be on an A team, but I can be the CSM of the battalion. So, and there's definitely a lot of history there. I mean, they're called the Originals. That was the first Special Forces battalion in the U.S. Army. June 19th, 1952, they were created. That was the first Green Berets, the first Special Forces guys was right there. So that was kind of cool. I don't regret any of it. In fact, I don't have really any regrets throughout my whole career, but it wasn't super enjoyable. I had some unique challenges. I had some, a lot of discipline issues that I just never really had to deal with. Definitely not at the unit. I mean, there's some criminals in the Special Forces community. I had some a lot of discipline issues. I wasn't really expecting that. But I don't think I was a super popular guy, because, I kind of maybe put people in their place a little bit. I'm like, the operators who were like, I'm the baddest dude there is. I'm like, actually, you're not that much of a badass. And here's why. And here's your times on that last hit. They weren't that great. And, why are you doing it this way? So I kind of, put them in their place. And then the support guys are like, hey, we're just as important as, the operators. We're just as good as the Green Berets, and, they need us. They can't do their mission without, whatever, pick a support MOS, admin. They can't do shit without the admin support and blah, blah. So I would lay it out to them. I'd be like, hey, dude, if every single Green Beret went away from this battalion, you, support guy, would no longer have a job. You wouldn't have a purpose. You wouldn't have a job. I said, but if every single support guy went away, the Green Berets would still have a job. So don't try to tell me that you are more important and they can't do shit without you. So I just had a tendency to kind of,
take it down one notch.
Yeah. Crush
yeah,
everybody's
just kind of
spirit
like
equally.
So some people, I think they like open their eyes, but I think a lot of people just like, man, this guy's kind of a dick, and we can't wait till his time is up. So and I instituted some PT standards and stuff like that. Had guys do a 18-mile road march with a 40-pound ruck in 4.5 hours. Not super hard, but I mean, if you're even a support guy, because everybody in the battalion, even if you're a support guy in a Special Forces battalion, a forward station Special Forces battalion, you should be able to ruck 40 miles. You should be able to ruck 18 miles in 4.5 hours with a 40-pound ruck. And surprisingly, there were a few Green Berets who didn't quite meet that standard. And, so they got embarrassed. And guys don't like being embarrassed. And I'm the one that embarrassed them. So, yeah, I wasn't a super popular guy, I don't think, but I'm okay with that. I think I brought a few positive changes, I hope. So, yeah, that was the end of my military career, though.
And retired in 2016. And since that time, where did you end up settling down? And tell us about how you got into local politics.
So I retired and moved back to Wisconsin. I'm really a big fan of Wisconsin. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I don't know. I just really like this state. It's got some unique features that other states don't have, and it's kind of out of the way. Like, it's hard. Most people don't like accidentally drive into or through Wisconsin. Like, you have to make an effort to come here. Probably like Maine. You don't just accidentally pass through there. So I didn't move right back to like my hometown. I'm probably about 2 hours away from where I actually grew up, more up in the North Woods. No farms around here. People think Wisconsin's all farms and cows and stuff like that. There's no fields or farms around here. It's all woods and lakes where I'm at. So local politics. I'm like, I moved back here, and I kind of wanted to get integrated a little bit, assimilated into this community. And so I'm like, hey, I'm gonna buy a house. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to put my kids in school. And I just kind of wanted to make this my permanent home, probably for the rest of my life. And the problem with this town is it's real touristy. And so if you weren't born here and raised here, then you're not from here, and you'll kind of always be an outsider. So it took me a few years to realize that. But one of the things I was going to try to do to get assimilated and welcomed was to maybe get into local politics. So I ran for the school board probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I lost. And I'm like, okay, that was a good learning adventure. So I wasn't upset about losing. I'm not like, that's it, I tried, one and done, I'm out. I'm like, no, I'm gonna look at some other options. In fact, I was planning to probably run for school board again if there was another opening, but an opening came up for County Board Supervisor in my district. So I got on the ballot, and I ran an effective campaign, and I won probably by like 56%, something like that. So bam, I'm now County Board Supervisor. And I mean, it's probably not a big deal in most people's eyes, because there's only like 18,000 people in the whole county, and there's 15 supervisors, so my constituent base is like probably 1,100 people. But I really started to enjoy it. I got put on the zoning committee, which I was against at first, but I'm like, man, I really like this zoning stuff. I think because, I like those unique things that come up, and I have to deal with them.
You were a CSM. Of course, you don't like people stepping on your grass. It's no surprise that you're into zoning.
Right. How many rocks have you had your constituency paint?
No, I wasn't that kind of CSM. No, I wasn't popular for other things, but it wasn't because I was that guy. I mean, I was the guy who had my, hat off, hands in my pockets, walking across the grass, middle of parade field, probably flicking a cigarette butt, I'm not.
Right,
So I
right.
wasn't a very good CSM in that aspect. But anyway, so yeah, I'm on the county board, and then I ran for reelection in the spring of 2022. Got reelected. In fact, I was unopposed. Nobody ran against me. And then I'm on 3 committees, and then I was elected the chairman of 2 of those committees. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and I was planning to maybe do that for a while, but just between us, I don't know if you have any viewers here or not, but I'm actually going to be moving probably this summer, so I'll be leaving this county, going way down south to the next county south.
So not
so
like
I'm
Texas South, but next
No,
county.
no.
It's just
No, I'll
between
still
you,
be-
me,
Yeah.
Dave, and the entire internet.
And-
No one
and
will
the
ever
internet.
find out. Yeah.
So I'll still be north of 8, and people from Wisconsin know what that means. But since I'm leaving my district, my county, I have to resign from the county board. So that by this summer, by June or so, I'll be not doing that job. But I mean, that frees me up. The next election is in the spring of 2024, so maybe I'll look at running in my new county. Although I've already done some research on the current supervisor for the district I'm moving to, and he seems like a real good guy. He's a retired police chief from the city there and stuff. So, I mean, it's not like I want to oust him.
Yeah.
Right.
If he was some weirdo, nut job, then I'd be like, oh yeah, I gotta get rid of this person.
Right.
But I mean, he seems to be a good guy, and people like him and stuff. So I don't feel a need to go
Right.
in there and oust him.
Right.
I think it's really great that you after your retirement got involved in local politics and making a difference in the local community, and I hope you'll continue that wherever you settle down.
Yeah. I was also I was the vice president of the local of the Veterans Community Center as well too, but I kind of had a falling out with those guys. I don't know. I think they saw my podcast where I was kind of talking bad about the VFW and some of the veteran service organizations. And they're like, no, that's actually not true, because I resigned a month before I did that podcast. So now I just wasn't agreeing with some of the direction they were going. So anyway, I made an effort to fit in this county, and they haven't accepted me. So try the next county.
Is there a strong veterans community where you're at? Like it's such a small area, but does it have a bigger veteran community than, say, larger areas that are more urban?
I mean, I think that's the case across America. I mean, if you and I don't know why that is. For instance, let me give you a number, and I don't have a lot of stats, but like I said, there was 34 people in my graduating class. 7 of us went into the military out of 34. So that's a huge percentage.
Yeah,
I mean, what's a
sure.
national average?
Right.
I think it's, whatever, it's low. So I think people from maybe more rural areas and smaller towns, they can't make up for the numbers you're going to get from Los Angeles and Houston and New York, but percentage wise, it's probably a higher percentage from those less populated areas. And maybe that's because, and I think one of the reasons why, at least where I'm from, is because there's no opportunity there. There's nothing there. It's not like you're going to graduate high school and then go, what are you going to do? There's just not a lot of opportunity for careers right there. So I think that's one of the
I graduated high school in Westchester County, New York, which is sort of the suburbs of New York City. And I'd say a class of 120, I think I was the only person to go into the military. And the entire school looked at me like I was weird for doing that. Like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. In fact, I read the state that has the highest percentage or per capita people that go into the military. And this was several years ago. I read this like over 10 years ago, but it was North Dakota. Right.
Wow.
So obviously the highest numbers come from California, Texas, and Virginia because they have huge populations.
Right.
But the highest percentage of military enlistees was North Dakota. It was like they were over 4%, I think, of their
that makes
military
sense.
age. Yeah, because I mean, what's in North Dakota? A bunch of nothing,
Right.
How do you get out of that?
So you said because this isn't live, we couldn't take viewer questions, but you said that there were some questions that you had received, like on your Instagram. I don't think we had and stuff that you want to take.
I saw some on Jack's.
I'll pull mine.
Instagram.
I'll pull mine up right now.
Because I don't think we got any on Patreon, did we, D?
No.
Okay. But we definitely want to get to those questions.
All right, let's see what I have here.
Or I can look on mine too. I know that there was some on mine, but I mean, I could just be making up questions.
Who's the best looking guy you know, and why is it you?
Okay, so James Alexander asks, I've always been intrigued by the PT plans of guys at that level. Respectfully, could you discuss his views on fitness and how he trained in his time at the unit?
Yeah, I can talk about my fitness routine while I was in the unit. I'm definitely not like a CrossFit expert or some kind of physical training performance dude at all. But so the way I go about, if I'm instructing someone on how to shoot, I don't necessarily tell someone how to shoot. I just show them how I shoot. So my PT routine in the unit was I went to the gym very, I will say, infrequently. I maybe went quite often, maybe 3 days a week, but after about 15 minutes, I get really bored of the gym. So I'm not a gym guy. I'm not a gym rat at all. I do my 10, 15 minute, workout, get a little swole on. But my main workout was doing obstacle courses. And the reason why I think that is important is because, I mean, look at what our job was. If you're doing operator stuff, and like I said, all those houses had walls around. So you're going up to a house at night under nods, all this kit. You got to climb up over a wall. You got to balance on this narrow, maybe 4 or 5 inch top of this brick wall, worth a 10 or 12 foot drop. So you're balancing on there. Then you have to go up here, maybe set up a ladder, climb up here, maybe pull yourself up, and some other kit. So I think ways to be able to kind of maneuver and manipulate your body in and around things and over obstacles. I mean, translates so practically into what we did as our mission on a nightly basis. So my routine was once or twice a week, I would do what we call the gate to gate, where I would run from the bay all the way down range. And we had 2 pretty sophisticated obstacle courses. One was the long obstacle course and the other was the short one. So I would run down there, not in full kit, usually just my BDUs and boots. And I would do the long obstacle course and then the short obstacle course. And then on the way back, I would hit all the range walls. So I'm going over the walls, climbing up over buildings, shipping containers. And that was my main workout is doing just the obstacle course.
You were a combat focused PT guy.
It's very functional. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's functional. And then because if you got these big muscle dudes who are just in there like, hey, I can bench press 500 pounds. Yeah, but you can't you have no cardiovascular endurance, and you're not going to be able to hump a ruck, 5 miles in, and you're not going to be able to climb up the outside of this 3-story building, which we've had to do with kit, and your balance might not be great on this wall at night with nods. So it was more important for me if a guy was kind of like a little spidery and wiry kind of guy and more of a triathlete type body than the bodybuilder dude. There's some real big muscle guys and they perform well. I'm not taking anything away from them, but there were only, and we didn't do organized PT. Like everything is on your own. Like I said, it's individual. Selection is an individual event and selection is an ongoing process. So, but there were a couple times when I did team events that incorporated quite a bit of PT. One of them, I remember setting up on that long obstacle course. I actually set up paper targets, little bad guy cutout targets. And then I had the guys go down there in full kit, but with their simunition rifles. And on every single obstacle, in the middle of the obstacle, they had to engage a target. So they might be on a rope 20 feet off the ground doing a commando crawl. There's a target, they have to get their weapon out while balancing on the rope and engage a target. So stuff like that it's combat effective, physical performance training that worked well for me. So that was my routine.
I think that's the only question I had on my Instagram.
I don't know. I'm not I don't have to answer weirdo questions.
No, please do.
Weirdo questions.
No.
You're gonna make me. I gotta put on my glasses.
Yeah. Look, if you don't, I'll put mine on so you don't feel bad. Are yours the Amazon specials? Because mine are.
Yeah, I actually got some prescription bifocals.
All right, here we go. I'm on your Instagram now, Jesse.
Okay.
Let's see what kind of weirdo questions I can pull out of here.
No, don't do it, because there's a couple weird ones I saw in there that.
Okay, here's one. I don't know if you could speak to this or not. Is there anything you could say about the Iraqi Mohawk program?
Man, I don't know. I don't know if we've been out of Iraq for a while now. I don't know the sensitivity on it. I'm sure it's not classified. Obviously, it's not classified because we're using freaking host nation indigenous people without a security clearance. But that doesn't mean it's not sensitive. So the Mohawk program was basically just grabbing up some Iraqis, good Iraqis, if that makes sense. And they probably, a lot of them were prior military, but not all of them. So they were in the Iraqi army, and so they had some form of discipline and some military training, and they knew how to work a gun and maybe even a GPS. But so we would recruit some of these guys and give them a little extra training and then maybe some equipment, and we would use them to mainly just to help identify and pinpoint some targets for us. So because they're Iraqis, they can go wherever. They go to the local coffee shop and they blend in. They don't have to put on a disguise or use a fake name or whatever, because they live there. That's their town, right? So they can get information for us, and then if they find out where maybe this bad guy lives, because they have a description of the house, it's the third house on the right on this street, green door, whatever, then we can give them a little GPS and they can actually go there and we teach them how to use it. So they can mark their waypoint, or they can take a picture with the camera we gave them, and then they bring that back to us. So now we have an exact 10-digit grid and maybe a picture of the door or whatever. So there may be other things that they did. I had very limited interaction with those guys, but I do know that we used them, like me personally, for some getting that 10-digit grid on a target that I couldn't maybe go into that neighborhood because they had an early warning system, and I looked like a Westerner or an American of Northern European descent. So I'm not probably going to go into any more on that.
He's also asking about Marwai, which was that was the Philippines after you that battle happened after you retired. So
never heard of it.
Yeah. Someone else is asking, he'd like to hear a little bit about trapping, in your experience trapping. If you have anything you'd like to lay on us about that.
Oh man, so here we go. This is
all right.
This is what I do now. I get to talk about trapping. I thought it was just gonna be about commando stuff. So I have not probably a lot of hobbies. I used to be really big into buying and selling antiques, but I just completely lost interest in that a few years ago. But I used to trap a lot as a kid. Like I said, I started trapping by myself when I was 8. Caught my first muskrat when I was 8 years old. I trapped with my dad before that, when I was my dad used to trap for a living. He fed his family off of trapping and poaching deer or whatever. So I learned from him and I really enjoyed it. So I didn't get to do very much of it, obviously, when I was in the Army. So I'm like, when I retire, I'm gonna, here's a couple things I want to do. I want to buy and sell antiques, and I want to run a trap line. So in 2016, I went, bought all these traps and started trapping. But it's like, man, it had been so long. I had to relearn. I had forgotten a lot of what I thought I knew. So I would watch dozens and dozens of YouTube videos, which are really helpful. Like, okay, here's how you trap a coyote. Here's how you trap a beaver. Here's how you trap a mink, because it's very different for a lot of different species of fur-bearing animals. And I do enjoy trapping canines, the fox and coyote, but we just don't have a whole lot right around here. And that's because we have a huge amount of wolves around here. The wolves just kill every coyote you set. In fact, I didn't set a single coyote trap this year. Last year I set 6. And on my second check, I had a big old male wolf in there that are not fun to release. Because I don't have a tag. I can't kill him, so I had to release him.
Oh, he wasn't grateful? Like, he wasn't grateful that you were releasing him?
Yeah.
He didn't become your best friend?
No. In the year before, I caught another one. And then also in my canine sets, I tend to catch a lot of bobcat, which I only get one tag maybe every 3 years. I catch a lot of fisher, which I only get one tag maybe every other year. And all of those I have to release. So I've released a lot of bobcat and fisher and 2 wolves over the past couple of years. So
oh man,
so I kind of lost my interest in trapping canine. So I've really the past couple of years started focusing on beaver trapping, which it's actually a lot of fun. And talking about PT, that's like the only PT that I do now is I trap beaver. And that is a freaking workout. Like, you want to burn like tens of thousands of calories, go out trapping beaver, especially now in early February with 2.5 feet of snow and a foot of ice. It's a lot of work trapping beaver, but it's also a lot of fun. And the good thing is the price, well, maybe not a good thing. So because the price of fur is really low, there's hardly anybody trapping. Like, there's maybe only 3 other trappers in my whole county. Now, I'm in a big county, like area wise, it's the 5th largest in the state. So because nobody's trapping, there's a huge amount of beaver. They're like overpopulated. Like, people call me up in the summertime, when it's not even beaver season. They're like, can you come and trap beaver? They're eating all my, decorative trees and destroying my shoreline or whatever else. So there's a lot of beaver. In fact, last season I trapped 110 beaver just here in this county, just around, basically around the house. I got kind of a late start this year. I'm only up to, I think, 35, but I was just out skinning a couple earlier today. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel that's almost exclusively beaver trapping. In fact, I need to branch out, put in some other content.
What's your channel for people who want to watch it?
I was just called Tier 1 Trapper, but YouTube added a couple digits on there.
They added some numbers to our names and stuff. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, so it's Tier 1 Trapper 747 is my YouTube handle. And like I said, almost all my videos are beaver trapping. I went on an elk hunt with my son this past fall in Idaho, so I put a video on there about that. There might be a couple other here and there, but most of them are beaver trapping.
Jesse,
but,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I think we really want to hear about how you released a wolf and a bobcat. But go ahead and finish what you're saying before you tell us that.
I was going to talk about my trapping trip, but I'll tell you. So I have a catch pole like a dog catcher would use. It's a long fiberglass pole with a cable noose, but it's only 4 feet long. And the noose is only about 12 inches around. So surprisingly, bobcat are the easiest for me to release. They snarl and they make a lot of hissing and noises and stuff, but they're not like, they don't try to come at you. They don't try to hurt you or anything like that. And when you get the noose around their neck, and if you cinch it down, then they kind of, fight a little bit and jump around, but they look mean, but they're pretty docile. A big male fisher, they'll try to to hurt you.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you know what a fisher is. They're like a kind of like a smaller version of a wolverine. They're in the same family. They're mustelids in the weasel family. Like a really big mink or a smaller wolverine, but really mean, aggressive. They'll like I've had them like lunge at me. So they're not as fun to release. The wolves are challenging, as I've released 2 with my 4-foot catch pole. And the first one was pretty easy. It was a younger wolf, and he was caught in a trap that was staked right there to the ground. So he didn't have a lot of room to maneuver. And that one was fairly uneventful. But the one I caught last season, it was a big male, and it was on a drag, meaning it had an 8-foot chain, and he was in tangled up in some thick brush. So now I have to go in this thick brush where this wolf, big wolf, well over 100 pounds, has 8 feet of chain to maneuver, right? So I actually called up the local game warden. I know, I'm like, hey, do you mind coming out here? I said, I don't need any help, but I just want another responsible adult nearby in case, I lose my footing or something goes wrong, And so he's like, yeah, I'll show up out there. So he didn't help. He just stood there, took a couple pictures and stuff as I'm like trying to go in there with this catch pole. And like I said, it's got a 12-inch loop. Well, this freaking wolf, its head was probably 13 inches.
Holy
big,
shit.
massive teeth. And so I'd get that noose close to him, and he would like snap at it with his teeth, and then he grabbed it. And now I'm like playing tug of war, like you would with your dog at home with this freaking wolf. And finally it took a while, but I was able to kind of force it over its head and cinch it down. And now I'm wrestling with this wolf. And then the warden did come in then, and he held the pole while I was able to release the trap off its foot. And then he's like, handed me the pole back real quick. So now the wolf is out of the trap completely. The only thing keeping it from freedom is me holding the stick with a noose around its neck. And they're not gonna like come in and attack you. It's just one wolf by himself. So you just release the cable and they run off. There's really not as much threat, as
Really?
I don't think so. I say that because I've been uninjured so far.
Right.
I know a couple people that have been injured. There was guys trying to release a black bear here in Wisconsin, I think 2 years ago, and they were going up with a sheet of plywood, which is a technique. You cut out a little hole in the bottom of the plywood, but they didn't have handles on the plywood. They were just kind of holding on to the top or the sides, and the guy get his finger bitten completely off by this bear. And then I know a couple people that have gotten scratched by bobcats and stuff like that, trying to release them. But it just adds to the excitement.
I think I'd go out there and chainmail if I had to release something like that.
Quite,
Just a full suit of chainmail and curl up in a little ball once I let them go.
Jesse,
So
man.
one thing, what I was going to mention is my upcoming trapping trip that I'm planning. I'm actually pretty excited about this, and I don't know. I don't usually get real excited about things anymore, unfortunately. But I'm planning a 6 or maybe even 8 week solo trapping trip up to the interior of Alaska this next fall, from probably like mid-October to early December. And I'll be targeting wolverine and lynx and marten and wolves up there. So I can actually kill a wolf up there if I catch one. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a good time, I hope.
Now, when you go up to a place like Alaska, do they have bounties for a lot of those animals?
No, not in Alaska. Some places do. I've never trapped any bounties. I think some of the western states might. But I have trapped I've trapped in South Dakota and Idaho a couple times in both of those places. But Alaska is a different. I'm really looking forward to it just because it's unlimited. I can catch as many wolverine as I want, and not that I'm probably going to catch. I'm hoping I get one, but some guys get 20 up there a year. But there's no real restrictions on trap placement and the sizes and the spade, stuff like that, where like here in Wisconsin, it's really restrictive, and some states are, even more restrictive than that. So, and we have limits. Like I said, I can only get one bobcat over 3 years. Up there, I can catch unlimited lynx, unlimited marten, unlimited wolves. So I think it'll be a good time. Even if I don't catch anything, I kind of like being by myself in a tent for an extended period. That brings me comfort.
Now, do you enjoy trapping more than hunting? And if like, what do you enjoy about what do you enjoy about trapping over hunting?
Yeah, so in high school, especially, I loved bow hunting, and deer hunting was like the biggest, holiday of the year. And I don't know, lost interest. There's a few other things that, I used to enjoy that I don't enjoy as much. So I still hunt now, but I hunt for subsistence. I hunt to put meat in the freezer and feed my family. So I'm not at all a trophy hunter. I'll get like 1 buck tag and 4 doe tags, and I'll go out and shoot the first 4 deer I see, and then I'm done. Freezer's full. And so I don't really unfortunately, I don't get as much pleasure out of hunting as I used to, but trapping, I was really, when I first retired, I was like really into it, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit. And the past year, I really started to get more into it, with beaver trapping and stuff, trying some new techniques. I do mostly snaring under the ice for beaver, which, it wasn't even legal back when I was in high school. Now I can do that. There's other things that I can do now that I couldn't do then. They've changed. But even the canine trapping, coyote are pretty smart animal. I think they're a lot harder to catch than a fox. If I'm trapping an area that has equal number of fox and coyote, I'll catch twice as many foxes as I do coyote, because people are like, oh, the fox are so smart and sly and everything. And maybe they are, but those coyotes are smarter and maybe not more sly, but they're more like maybe skittish. Like if there's anything wrong, if they smell anything out of place, or anything looks out of place, feels out of place, they're gone, and you won't catch them again. But a fox, you might miss them, and then they'll come back. So to get this smart animal who's out, who lives in the wild, like he's an expert in survival, right? Every day he's out there, surviving, and he gets really smart. And to get that animal to come from a mile away to step on a little 2-inch circle, that takes, it's challenging. So it's, it's rewarding when you do catch one of those smarter animals. Now, beaver, they're just a big dumb rodent, right? They're like a big lab rat. They're not super smart, but they can get educated. If you miss one, screw up, and the trap snaps in front of them, they're not going to go near a trap again, because now they know what it is and can harm them. But other than that, they're just pretty dumb rodents. And like I said, there's a lot of them around. They're pretty easy to catch. And I enjoy it. I'm trying to get, my goal is to get a 100-pound beaver. And
I didn't even know
people are like, what? Beaver don't get that big. I'm like, they do. There's like a 100-pounder caught almost every year in Wisconsin.
Wow.
The biggest I've caught is maybe like just over 80 pounds. This year I haven't. I've only gotten, I think, one that's 62 pounds, my biggest one this year.
Jesse, is there anything else you want to plug while we're here? I think you mentioned you had like a t-shirt company that you're running off some t-shirts. Show that off.
Yeah. So, I got a t-shirt company. It's, if you go to jingonow.com, I've got some patriotic shirts and some that are kind of like dark humor. And so, a jingo is, it's a patriot who's in favor of war usually. So that's where that name comes from. And my screen name on Instagram is friendly but not your friend. So that's where that's my best seller, that friendly but not your friend shirt. I just came out with some hoodies too.
Cool.
In that design. So yeah, jingonow.com, got some shirts there. I would like to plug a couple different companies, but
sure, go ahead.
But I can't quite yet. So I just got some offers to be a pro staffer for a couple different companies, but it's not finalized yet. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Okay.
If that happens, they're gonna.
Yeah, if that happens, let us know and we'll plug you. Like,
we'll plug you on our Instagram and Twitter and wherever people do their social media shopping.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I already mentioned my YouTube channel, Instagram, website. Yeah, that's
All right.
I don't know. I don't really have anything that I'm probably gonna plug. I'll put on my Instagram. So I've got a few followers there. I've only got I don't even think I have 500 yet on YouTube. So again, that's my own fault though, because I only put beaver crap in videos.
That's all right.
Yeah, but if you're trapping beaver, those are perfect clickbait titles.
Yeah,
Shaved beaver.
I've heard every beaver joke probably imaginable.
I know.
But I
have.
did learn a valuable lesson though. So I'm I guess kind of fairly new to social media. I mean, I used to be on Facebook, but I'm not anymore. But Instagram, I've only been on there maybe 2 years, and so I'm like, catch this big black beaver. So I'm like hashtag big black beaver, and yeah, you get a whole new demographic of
Right.
Use that.
Oh,
well, that was like the Primus song, right? Winona's got a big brown beaver. Yeah.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for joining us, man, tonight. Really appreciate it.
A lot of fun.
This Friday, we're gonna have Joel Funk on. He was a MH-47 pilot. So check us out this Friday. We'll have him on.
And hopefully we'll have our internet situation
hopefully we'll
fixed.
have our internet unfucked by then. But Jesse, thank you, man. Really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah, hey, it was my pleasure. This is I think my 5th podcast or interview I've done now in the last year. I did my first one almost exactly a year ago with Kyle Lamb, and I enjoy them. I mean, I feel a little bit weird talking about stuff that I normally haven't ever talked about in the past, but honestly, they have been a little bit therapeutic, I think, for me too.
Absolutely.
To talk about some of this stuff. So I appreciate you guys inviting me on.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
It's our pleasure.
Anytime. Please stay in touch. And, best of luck in the next election.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. Have a nice night.